evening, and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 168th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. A little old school versus a little new, except for not really a versus. No battle royales, no punches being thrown. I mean, how far could a punch really go over Zoom anyway? But anyway, I digress. Really excited to introduce my two guests tonight. But before we get to our guests of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is tonight's sponsor, which is Drew Estate. Drew Estate is marking its 25th anniversary this year. The Drew Estate and the rebirth of the cigar movement. To celebrate this momentous occasion, the company is inviting you, yes, you, consumers, retailers, and cigar media to its epic blowout birthday bash entitled DE25. DE25 will be held on September 25th at South Fork Ranch in Parker, Texas. I can personally attest, it is not in the middle of nowhere. It's literally 30 minutes from my house. I live right in the middle of Dallas-Fort Worth. 30 minutes from my house, you will get to South Fork Ranch. Awesome facility, right in the heart of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Well, not in the heart, but good stuff. DE25 celebration will include the unveiling of Drew Estate's newest brands, with a first-to-experience approach for consumers and trade partners together. So mark those calendars, DE25. Also, tonight's sponsor is Oveja Negra Brands, 4 unique companies who share a passion to provide innovative cigars for the next generation of cigar enthusiasts. Black Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, Dissident, and Emilio are combining premium tobaccos with an artisanal touch. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock and visit ovejanegracigars.com to learn more. And welcome, everyone. Take 168 here for you. Really excited to introduce tonight's guests. So let's give a warm welcome to our guests tonight, sponsored by United Cigars, Will Cooper and Matt Tabacco. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Good evening, folks. Bear, thanks for having me on. This is certainly a privilege to be part of ELOSOFUMARTAKES.
I'm so excited to have you, man. This is kind of been a long time coming. Has this been the shortest but longest year of your life? That's the first question I have for you.
Probably the longest. So much happened. So many life-changing things happened. So it was definitely a long year.
So much length, so much time, so much effort.
Yeah.
But all without leaving, all with barely leaving the comfort of your home for months on end.
True. Yeah, exactly. Part of it was a blessing in disguise, really. I mean, I had so much time to work on some very key things like, my cigar journey, my, personal relationship, smoking the coal, just stuff like that. And it was very rewarding,
It's fantastic when things kind of come together in like a perfect way, which kind of in a lot of ways describes my professional relationship working with our other guest tonight, which is, of course, Will Cooper, making another return to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. Coop, welcome back.
And he's muted. Oh, he did.
Oh, man. Yeah, rookie mistake.
There we go.
I thought he was supposed to be some sort of professional.
I was like, wait. Is he trying to make us feel better about ourselves or something?
Well, I didn't want any background noise when Bear was doing this stuff, and I just forgot to turn it up. But when you're the guest, you could kind of get a little more relaxed on stuff like this.
I was going to say, aren't you the guy who does that primetime show?
Yeah, right. Yeah, my video on Facebook is awful. I don't know what happened with the rendering, so I apologize. But it's great to be here tonight. Bear, thanks for having me so much. This, as you know, Bear, my bad year was 2018, so everything's relative for me.
That's true.
Nothing can go worse. Nothing can go worse than 2018 went. So I go back and look at that year.
Coop's been preparing for the COVID era for a long time. He's slowly been working from home. He's got this wonderful garage turned into like a smoking lounge. He gets to work all day in there. You've been gearing up for this. You've been gearing up for it.
Well, what's funny is I was vaccinated. I come out of the bubble, and then what happens is we get hit with this gas thing in Charlotte, and really, honestly, I have a full tank of gas that I'm holding to go on the trip to Florida with. So I don't want to go anywhere right now for fear I can't get gas. But it's at least it's trending better. It's not getting worse. So that now there's some gas stations you just have to wait online. So that's better.
I mean, I mean, this happens quite a. Would you say? I'm quite a bit being relatively like, but I mean, I mean, is that affecting you on the Northeast too, Matt? This gas shortage?
No, we
Okay.
haven't really had an issue with any gas up here.
Yeah, we have in Charlotte and Atlanta. These are bigger cities with a very like they say it supplies 45% of the gas on the eastern seaboard, but Charlotte and Atlanta have a very high dependency on that pipeline. We went through the worst we went through was 2008 with this, and that was when Hurricane Ike knocked out the pipeline down by the refineries, and we were 2 weeks really bad with no gas, and there was talk of going to rations in the state. They were very close to starting to ration the gas, and finally they got things working again.
Rations, man. So next up, Rosie the Riveter was going to go back to work and work on those jet planes, right?
Yeah, but anytime like here's the thing: when I heard the news about the Colonial Pipeline, I literally within 10 minutes left the house and started getting all the cars gassed because I knew what was going to happen. Every time that pipeline's out, it does spur panic. So I just made sure we were topped off, and then people, in my house, are just driving for essential stuff, So,
Can I just
of course, the only one who didn't do it, yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to change the topic, but I just read a comment that I just couldn't ignore in the Facebook feed. It was from Alan Rubin, who said, "Coop's white background makes him look even paler, which I didn't think was possible."
Alan with the insightful comment of the night. Yeah, the videos. I just don't know what's happening. My video render is bad.
Riveting observation there.
I help myself.
Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate you both hopping on tonight. Just do want to give a word of thanks to you guys, because we actually did have a separate show booked, and unfortunately, as is always possible with some of the folks that we talk to on our shows, is that they're broadcasting from all over the world, and sometimes the internet connection, sometimes the internet connection isn't reliable here in the States, let alone in other countries. So there was an internet connectivity issue with our guests, our planned guest this week, but we were able to pivot, and I was able to bring you all on for, I think it's going to be a really insightful discussion about our all of our approaches to media from someone who's been in it up there, not the longest, Coop, but you've certainly been obviously been very consistent, Mr. Consistency over the last decade plus now. And then obviously we have a very, very new approach to cigar media with Smokin Tabacco launching in being just over a year old at this point. So I'm really excited to get y'all's insights and takes. I'm going to be really punny tonight on some of y'all's approach and how it could be very similar and how it could be very different. So like I said, this isn't a battle royale, old school versus new, but it's a discussion I've wanted to have for a long time, and it really presented itself with tonight's show. So thank you again for being on. But Matt, I have a task for you already. If you're up for this. Yeah. So Coop and I do this on Special Edition quite a bit, but I thought I'd carry this over because I really Coop's been always very supporting of me in every way. But I mean, you don't know me outside of social media, except for now we're actually getting to talk face to face, and but it really means a lot to me in particular. So hoping you would honor me tonight by picking my cigar. So I have a choice here for you, and I wanted you to pick my cigar for me. So here are your choices. I have a very well-aged Alec Bradley Mundial, the number 5. I have a Adventura, the Royal Return, Queen's Pearls, Robusto. I have the Trinidad Espiritu Series number 2, Toro.
Bear, I'm so sorry. I need to pause you for 1 second.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why, but the camera, which should be
color bars, man, I haven't seen those since like we were
it was like
watching network
going back to
television.
the 70s. Yeah, it's like Can we get a test like signal?
Color test caption.
Oh, I'm old enough. I remember those.
I look. I'm not that old, and I remember those.
Yeah.
I remember the rabbit ears, and you had to stand in one place in the middle of the room to actually get reception and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I remember you get a TV, you plug it in, and you watched it right out of the box. I mean, that's how we used to watch TV in the when I was younger.
You could just plug it in. Wow. No, that's awesome.
I mean, literally, because we had if you had a rooftop antenna, it was even easy. You just kind of you plugged it into the outlet with and you were off to the races with your TV. You had like 8 channels, but that was the price you paid to do that. So
you had 8 channels? Man, yeah. I had 4.
Well, New York, you had New York, which was a big city. So and you're right. We were spoiled in New York with 8 channels. You had a bunch of
bastard.
VHS. Yeah, it really. That's kind of always the interesting thing about that. When like I said, you look growing up, we had UHF, which you had to have like a really good signal to get a UHF signal. That was always fun. So
I don't know what happened here, but it's supposed to be plugged into wall power, so that way it just is not relying on the battery. For some reason, that wasn't working, and it went to battery, and the battery died. I don't know why. But I'm on my laptop camera for now until Nicole figures that out. So I'm sorry, Bear. I do
it's all good.
To rain on the parade there.
It's okay. We just we were Coop and I were reminiscing about the fact that he was spoiled. Apparently, he had 8 channels growing up. I had 4. So we were just talking about the color bars we hadn't seen in a while. So that's cool that they still exist, the color test and everything. So so I had the Mundial number 5, Alec Bradley, well aged. Trinidad Espiritu number 2, Toro. The Adventura, the Royal Return, Queen's Pearls Robusto, which the naming council would probably get on me because it's like 4.5 by 50. But and then the Rocky Patel Edition Unico, May 28th, 2011.
Ooh.
And I know a favorite in all of our hearts, the Eye of the Shark, Don Carlos. So. Yeah. Your choice, my friend. I will smoke whatever you ask out of that menu for you.
Out of everything on that list, I mean, the Fuente is very close to my heart, so I'm gonna have to go Don Carlos Eye of the Shark. And that cigar, not only is the blend in that Vitola very specifically one of my favorites. I love those. I have a box that I've had for I want to say 2 years or so now. And man, they're beautiful. I can't say enough about those. So yeah, enjoy one of those for me.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate you indulging me there. So that's going to be our that's going to be the cigar that I smoked tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. Really, and I just kind of want to jump in here. What is everyone else smoking tonight?
I am smoking the Corona Cigar 20th Anniversary Nicaraguan Selection.
Oh, the FSG? Or
that's FSG.
I'm trying to get it.
I think it's an FSG that they're doing with that one.
I think this is FSG tobacco.
The 30th or the 20th anniversary?
The 20th.
That's the Connecticut, right? The silver and white band?
Yeah.
That's FSG.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Very
stuff.
good cigar.
They do a good job. Yeah.
Sorry,
man. No, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say I have a box of them that I recently acquired a few months ago, and I've been ripping through them. They're so good. A lot of smoke production, real good flavor, real balanced. They burn nice draw. That cold draw has a nice sweetness to it that's real inviting. When I start it up, I like to I'll cut it and just take several dry puffs on it too. Just really enjoy the tobacco before I light it. And it's turned into one of my everyday favorites. I love this cigar.
It's a stellar smoke. I sampled that for the first time actually probably about a year ago. I never ask a retailer for don't give a retailer a choice because they always take the easy one. So I asked Jeff. I said, "What should I try, the Maduro or the Connecticut?" He's like, "Both."
Of course. I
Right.
mean,
Fair,
why
fair enough.
wouldn't you say that? You
I
know what I
know
mean? Like,
exactly, right? Can't
push
blame the guy.
both.
Right.
So, Coop, what are you smoking tonight?
Well, I'm gonna do cigars in honor of my friends on tonight that I'm on with. So, Bear, I'm gonna start off first since Matt's the guest. Matt and Nicole gifted me this Nova Park Avenue cigar.
Oh, nice.
That's a good
Platinum
stick.
Nova. Yep. Nice, big 6.25 by 54 ring gauge Bear. So nice, big and bulky. I love that. I do. I mean, I'm a big ring gauge fan, so I love that. And then Bear, I'm going to honor you because you just recently gifted me another one of these. The El Oso Fumar Takes Cigar of the Year. The La Barba Ricochet.
The Crew Mex Soul,
And this is
baby. Good
and this is the
stuff.
Grand Robusto. Grand Robusto. So
Grand
we're
Robusto,
Vitola
yes, sir.
based. So we go Vitola based. So we do it. So yep. So two great cigars by two great friends, and I'm very excited to smoke both of these tonight.
Yeah,
I think you got a great lineup. Oops, sorry, Bear.
Oh, I was just gonna say I need to try the I've yet to have tried the Nova cigars, and I know that
Really?
they're gaining some serious popularity and
We need to visit them at the trade show too, actually. So that's like I know they're going to be there. So
oh, okay.
I think that's a white space area. We definitely have to meet them, which we haven't. So
Well, terrific. What a great opportunity that'll be. So
Yep.
So gentlemen, I wanted to open up tonight's show with a little bit of an icebreaker, a little bit of fun. And this is a cigar. This is a question that I've actually posted on Facebook. I don't know, a couple times over the years, and it always gains a lot of attention, and it's a lot of fun, and I've always enjoyed the dialogue, and especially when there's so much vitriol on social media sometimes, and we kind of get kind of drowned in the negativity and all this other stuff. I kind of embrace the negativity with a simple question, but it's a question that actually generates a lot of dialogue, and it's actually all in fun, and people actually take it that way. No one takes anything personal, which is beautiful. So what is something that you love that everyone hates?
Well, I have something that I think cigar related most manufacturers hate, and that's going to be Lanceros. I love Lanceros. My favorite Lancero to date is the Atabey Spiritus. I think it's amazing. And I know that I've had these conversations with several people like Nick Perdomo and Steve Saka, and they hate Lanceros. So I guess I take pride in that one.
What is it that you like about a Lancero, Matt? So I mean I'm a Lancero fan too. Coop knows
Yep.
this. My audience knows this. I'm typically a smaller ring gauge cat myself. So what's the draw there? What do you like about a Lancero?
Well, I also traditionally am known for smoking a lot of thicker ring gauge cigars. I also like a lot of longer in length cigars, a lot of Churchills. I'm a huge fan of A's. I will go out of my way to find A's and some of my favorite, brands and lines, like Ligas, Fuentes, stuff like that. Love them. But the thing with the Lancero is it's nice sometimes to just go down to such a small ring gauge. It's a different smoking experience, different flavor experience, and just something about the small ring gauge and the long length. For me, it's just a very enjoyable experience in cigar. And so you know, I hadn't smoked a lot of them for a while. And when I first started to smoke Lanceros, I was like, I was always smoking big cigars, and I was like, I actually really like this. And then it was, I think I had some Aladinos and I had a bunch of other stuff like that. And, I really loved them. But it wasn't until I had the Atabey Spiritus when I was like, yeah, like I just love this experience right here. And that's when it became my favorite Lancero. But like LFD, I've had the LFD ones, and those are a good time. Pete Johnson and Tatuaje, he makes some really fun Lanceros. So I've just always really just enjoyed. And plus, they're not very common too, because people don't like them, so they don't make them. When you find them, it's kind of like a little treat and treasure. And I also kind of like that oddity. when I'm getting into cigars as well. So for me to find like a Lancero in a line, and I'm like, oh, I haven't found one of these before. I didn't know they had a Lancero. I get it and I smoke it, and I kind of have fun with that.
I mean, I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of Lanceros too, and I I've I used to ask about a Lancero from some manufacturers, and I stopped asking that question because I mean the answer's the same all around. They don't sell, and
They don't sell.
look, that's true. Like you have to find some pretty interesting pockets. So everyone kind of goes about to Stogies in Houston, which they've built a culture around it, which has been really fabulous for them, and it's great that there's places like that exist, so that Lanceros can really enjoy us. So like um and Nicole's watching, of course, and she brought up a really good point. Yeah, Nick has brought up speaking of Nick Perdomo, he's brought up this point, and it's pretty variable file fact. Very very small percentage of all cigar sales are Lanceros, where it's most a size like the Toro, for instance, is 5, 6, even 10 times as many, in terms of sales. Which is and that's a hard fact for manufacturers to ignore because they're in the game to make business, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and I understand it too. You're trying to make cigars that you can sell, and I mean that's the name of the game. I mean, you're in it to sell a product and to make money and to have a business. So naturally, it's human nature to be like, well, what doesn't sell, don't waste time on material and labor and all of that just to put something out there because the minority likes it, which kind of sucks because they are good and they are fun, and some of us like them, but and you have to kind of go out of your way a little bit to find them, the ones that do exist. But I mean, I guess I understand the mentality of it, and I guess I respect the move.
So
Coop, what about
I'm
you?
known. So I'm. What you want? Can I chime in on this part first?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I'm known as the Lancero hater, probably, and it's not really
yes.
true. It's not really true. Okay. I've given a Lancero Cigar of the Year. There was that same year, the number 2 cigar of the year was a Lancero. The Crux de Connoisseur was number 1. The Aladino Elegante was number 2. My problem with Lanceros is they're not good. Okay, half the time. So, and the reason why is a lot of times.
When you say half the time, is that an actual number? Because I know how you are about analytics. Is that an actual number for you?
I would say in my experience. Okay, so a lot of times when there's a Lancero, when a Lancero is blended to be a Lancero, it's fantastic. When it's round peg square hole, I find it doesn't work as much. Although the Aladino, it did work, right? Crux de Connoisseur is blended to be Lancero. But what happens is they either end up pulling out some of the tobacco, and Nick talked a little about this, or what they do is they cheat and they make it a 40 or a 42 ring gauge. So it's not really a true Lancero then, right? And some of those 40 and 42s are really good, right? But they're not really Lanceros if we go back to the whole naming council thing, right? You're starting to get into other territory. You're getting into Cazadores and Lonsdale territory at that point. So that's kind of really, I'm just finicky about that 7x38 Lancero. Matt mentioned Pete's the El Triunfador, the original. Fantastic Connecticut broadleaf Lancero. I mean,
yeah.
No one, but what was it blended to be? It was blended to be a Lancero. So yeah, I just want the record kind of cleared up, because I am known as the Lancero hater here. It's not really the case.
It's not that you're a hater, Coop. I think because like I appreciate Gordos, even though I'm the quote unquote Gordo hater, right? So I think it's just it's just the preference that you like larger gauge cigars over smaller gauge cigars typically, right? You're
right.
That particular year that you're referring to, you just found 2 Lanceros that were above the
it was
above
unbelievable.
the
cut. It was.
I was just gonna say I forgot I left out a Lancero on my list, and it's kind of embarrassing because it's probably my second favorite Lancero behind the Atabey because it's also killer, and I think it's Lancero or not, I think it's a cigar that defines this whole brand, and that's the 724 Lancero that Kurt Kendall puts out.
It was very good when we smoked that bear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did a comparison battle. We did the Gordo versus the Lancero in that blend.
Yeah, and it was very good. It
can't believe
was
I
very
left that
good.
off.
What is it about that one that you particularly like, Mac? Do you like the tobacco that's in it, or is it just the overall experience, or just the how the blend kind of comes together?
Well, for me, any cigar that is really good that I just enjoy smoking, that I think is tastes good, whatever, and I like to smoke is always a good experience. I like the tobacco in that. Um, it's such a unique blend, and it's one of those cigars. In Twins and Kurt, they're right here in our backyard, so we're there all the time. So, we're always grabbing 724, and so I've had a lot of them, and they're all really good, and I think that he does a really good job with that. I believe those cigars are made by Plasencia. So I mean, good quality right off the bat. But that Lancero, I think kind of like what you guys talk about being blended for a Lancero. When that cigar was made, I think that fired on all cylinders because I mean that
Yeah.
cigar. I mean, even Kurt will tell you, we're known for our Lancero. So I think it's a home run cigar. It's got a great flavor. It burns right. It's perfect. And I have to say, when I go 724, I would say 7 times out of 10, it's the Lancero that I smoke from that line.
So my answer is a little bit more basic, and it's going to fuel a follow-up question that I'm actually going to ask both of you all. So my answer is cigars, more specifically tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because of the society that we live in, I mean, we're constantly talking about the fight. We're constantly talking about how we're defending our right to enjoy a man-made product because we're all adults, and we're constantly having that dialogue, and we're having that dialogue because everyone hates tobacco. And I'm not talking about you, Matt. I'm just talking about actual tobacco. So
Don't worry, I've heard all the jokes.
yeah, no, man, I have to we have to say that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, because I mean, God forbid I mean, imagine if you grew up in an anti-tobacco, like became like you would have to change your name.
Like if I grew up in an anti-tobacco, what?
Like
A house?
like anti-tobacco house, or you grew up to be an anti-tobacco advocate, you would have had to change your name.
Well, I did actually come from an anti-tobacco smoking household. When I first got into cigars, it was not well perceived at all.
Interesting.
And then,
Okay.
and then I ended up actually turning some of my family members into cigar smokers. So, which was no small feat in itself. But so yeah, I prevailed. This is what I was meant to do. So I'm here. So yeah, I made it.
So that kind of goes to my question, though, Matt. So this one goes to you, Coots, as well. Like, how are you? Okay, so we're all welcomed in, obviously, in the industry because we're a part of this industry because we all love cigars. The industry is a cigar, is a tobacco-loving haven, if you will. Although we are a small number, few but mighty. What is Matt just told us about his experience outside of the tobacco industry? Coop, like how are you perceived? Your love of tobacco outside of what you would call outside of the industry. I mean, your family and friends that aren't affiliated with the industry. How are you perceived?
So look, with my immediate family, my wife, my daughter, and 3 sons, they're great about it. They really are. Even when I go to the cigar store when my boys were like 10 or 11, they loved coming along and sitting on the patio. They felt like adults. Unfortunately, my dad's been great about it too. Unfortunately, there's other members of my family that have really not been very kind about it. And I'm talking immediate family. When you kind of interview, I did some pretty good interviews with kind of people you may know, and they won't even tune into it to see how I did. And it hurts. It very much hurts. I mean, I don't have any bad feelings, but I could tell you it hurts a lot. Just because they're anti-tobacco.
That's dang. I mean, that's rough. I think
I could not say. I was debating when you asked the question. I was to say it. I don't want to say who the family members are, but yeah, it hurts.
no. I'm not asking. I'm not asking you to. I think that's no, but I think that's obviously something we've all struggled with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt just gave his backstory a little bit as well, but
Yeah.
my wife has taken to opening my mother's mail because she still sends me articles about how smoking is harmful for me. Of course, my mother doesn't realize that the articles that she's
Yeah.
sending me is about cigarette smoking. But, again, kind of goes to the ignorance that we talk about and preach about all the time, is that now my mother's very proud of me. I say this all the time. She is. She just doesn't get it. And that's okay. And that's partly on me, right?
Yeah.
I need to be better at educating her.
Yeah. Well, it hit home this week because I did do the interview with Armand, right? And I did let my family know that I was interviewing Armand. And one of these people I'm talking about happens to be the biggest Armand DeSante fan. And wouldn't even tune into it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it really stung me this week. And it's not the brag that I was interviewing Armand, but I think you kind of understand the circumstance in that case. It's not something you get to do every day. And really was, we talked about cigars, but to not even give it a shot to look at it, I was like, really? Okay, whatever. I'm just going to, but I had to get it off my chest tonight. So.
Well, that wasn't even planned.
I can't. But I tell you what, most of them, like my immediate, they were all wonderful about it. My daughter was, it was great. So that part made it. My wife was awesome about it. So that part, was happy to hear.
Well, we're proud of you, Coop. I know that doesn't mean as much as some of your family.
No, it does mean a lot. It really does mean a lot. Yeah. To be somber on that, but yeah, unfortunately, it's been tough sometimes.
Coop, and kind of to echo what he said, I know it doesn't change. Your family is always probably the most important support that you always look for. But on the bright side, you have a whole industry that knows you and loves you. So
yeah,
I mean,
I appreciate it. Really. I mean, and I'll talk about it later too. But when I got sick, I mean, this industry, I couldn't believe the love they showed me. I didn't realize it, and it meant a lot. I'll never forget it. So, it is a great industry, and I'm thankful for that. I don't take it for granted.
All right. Well, gentlemen, that brings up tonight's major point, which is always brought to you by Tabacco Cigars. Tabacco is back, everyone. The voyage has relaunched. I personally couldn't wait for this cigar to come back. It's been over 3 years, but now with the revamped blend coming straight out of one of the hottest factories in the industry. Denny Vasquez promises if you liked the original blend, you're going to absolutely love the relaunch. So it was launched last month. If you can believe it, it's been back on the market for a whole month now. Check out your local tobacconist. Ask your local tobacconist to carry the voyage. And remember, never settle. Tabacco Cigar Company. So, gentlemen, like I said, as this tonight's discussion was heralded as a old school versus new. Again, this wasn't meant to be a battle royale type of sorts, but I talked to you both about this concept before we went into tonight to kind of gauge just the differences from where we all sit in our experience level when it comes to covering this industry and our different perspectives and our different takes on how we do it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of how long we all have individually been in the industry. But where I think, and I know Coop will echo the sentiment, where I think it's very unique is that we have the opportunity to speak to someone who has not been doing this for a very long time, but has done it at an incredibly high level for a short amount of time, which is our guest tonight, Matt Tabacco of Smokin Tabacco. So with that, I want to kind of go into this first question. So Matt, when you were first like, hey, I'm going to do this, and in case it was you, Nicole, we're going to do this, what did you want your signature to be? What did you want to be known for? And did you succeed at that? Are you known for that?
I would say that when we started the show, John Carney and myself, during the COVID pandemic, we if you know the story, we didn't go into it trying to be like Coop or you or anyone else. We just wanted to do a live broadcast of some sort. But as we, saw the potential and we made it work, and we went through the channels and we were like, okay, we're really going to do this. We were like, well, what are we doing? Are we gonna be like Cigar Coop? We're gonna be like Cigar Authority? We're gonna be like KMA? There's a lot of people out there. And what we came up with, and this is no disrespect to any of you guys, we love you at all, but we were like, there's a lot of shows that are more like solid industry shows, where they really get into the meat potatoes, which is great, and that's not a bad thing at all. But I want it to be different. You always try to be different to give a different variety. So I think one of the things that we tried to do was just be a little bit different than kind of what everyone was doing. Slightly shorter show, kind of different touch on different approach. And not so much in depth, just kind of hit all the good points and then try to do some other things in there too. And we kind of go off cigars and just kind of a little, I don't want to say like a mismatch or anything like that, but we kind of meticulously over time as the show developed this kind of pattern and rhythm for how we presented the show and like how we did it. We still have guests on. It's still a cigar show. We still smoke. We talk about cigars. We talk about the tobaccos and all that. We just try to have a different approach to it, if that makes sense. And I think that we've succeeded with that for the most part. And one of the things that, and I hope I'm not getting too ahead of myself here with my stuff that I'm gonna have to answer later, but one of the things is, as you go and you do this, you learn to evolve and you learn things and you make mistakes, and I learned that from Coop. I'll throw that out there. I remember there's things I've gone wrong on shows live, and I'm like, oh, that sucked. And I've talked to Coop, and he's like, dude, I delivered the wrong set of news one time live on the air. So like, it happens to all of us. But and that's just how you get better. So back to the original point. I think that it's just been trying to. I like to be known for having kind of a different style of show that's a little bit lighter for some people. And I don't know, I think it worked. I think it's done well. People watch every week, so it's kind of good.
No, I think there's something to that approach, even though we pose the show as not a battle royale, but I think you're already taking digs at me and Coop. You're like, we do a shorter show.
No,
I didn't say that. No, not at all. No, it wasn't
not
that.
a bad thing. No,
just kidding. I just kidding. Stirring the pot a little bit. No. And I think there was because that was that. I mean, let's be honest here. That was my original intent for this show, was to do abbreviated, kind of hard hitting, really quick. And I started having conversations that with some of the people that we've been blessed to have it, all three of us have had conversations with, that I didn't want to end. I didn't want to call it short just because I'm like, oh, okay, we'll touch on that next time, or we'll talk about that next time. Or if, there's some people you just need to let roll. And because it's riveting conversation. And so as time has gone on, this has kind of morphed into a little bit longer show, but the original intent was to find the story behind the story, and that's kind of the concept of tonight's show too. It's not talking about. There's going to be a time, Matt, where I'll have you and Nicole on the show, and we'll talk about you as people and the things that I'm interested in. But for tonight's purpose, I think it still proves the point that I'm really interested in the two very unique perspectives that you guys have on the same topic, which is covering this industry. So I dig what you obviously I dig what y'all are doing, and I think you do bring a fresh look to what we all do, which is very similar. So Coop, what about you? This is okay. Don't make it sound like you're ancient, but 10 plus years ago, what did you want? What did you wanted your signature to be? What did you want to be known for? And did you ultimately accomplish it?
I think I did, right? So when you go back to, I think I told you my roots originally was, I went to the trade show as a kind of a buyer, business development manager for a retailer. And I came out of that trade show and I started writing, for all practical purposes, the blog Cigar Coop. Matt talks about what went wrong on his first show. The articles on Cigar Coop those first couple of months was so bad, I can't look at them, okay? They're just horrendous, right? But people actually paid attention to them and thought they were decent, right? But believe me, horrendous they were. But
everyone's going back now, Coop. Everyone's going back. Like
the amount of traffic that's going to go back to those early articles.
Look, if you read in the 10-year series I wrote, which I talked about, the 10-year series, which Matt used the word evolution. And that was a big thing. I talk about evolution in that, evolving the way. I mentioned there are references to those bad articles. But here was the thing that was going on 10 years ago. We were at a time when the online media piece was new to the industry. And it was, it wasn't totally rejected, but it wasn't yet widely accepted. And at the time, it was a little bit of the Wild West with online media. People were just putting out wrong content. There was things that were wrong out there. look, and this is kind of heresy. I'm going to say this, but I'm going to name names here. Dog Watch Radio, which is considered a pioneer. I listen to Dog Watch Radio every week, and wrong. Everything they're wrong on, right? They're giving incorrect information, right? So I'm seeing this from people who are, good people doing media, right? But the information was wrong. And if you talk to Charlie Minato, who's coming up around the same time as me, he saw the same thing happen. We both saw this. Like, there's so much misinformation, incorrect information out there that I think there was an opportunity to kind of seize that and get better. So that's kind of where I wanted to make sure we had accurate information. It was, factual content that we could substantiate. And that was kind of what I was looking to do with the mark. There was a lot of rumor stuff was bad, right? Charlie would tell you the story, like when he reported that Dylan Austin was fired from Camacho, right? And he'll admit that was a mistake, right? So even he was making some mistakes. And so a lot of us had to really learn how to just kind of validate information, kind of do a little bit of the extra work. And, eventually I knew it was going to pay off. I just eventually knew it was going to pay off, and it did. And really, as I started to evolve this thing, the brand I wanted to be more of an industry publication. And then eventually when I launched primetime shows, as industry-centric shows. So we have a little fun with other things. I'm not going to say we don't, but that's what I was looking to accomplish with that. And it took a long time to evolve to all that stuff. I don't think I really hit the stride reporting the news till about 2015 or so. That's when I thought we're making some dent right now where, a lot of people paying attention to Half Wheel and Cigar Aficionado. Now I was starting to see stuff where we were getting more information direct from manufacturers and it's grown very well since then. So, but it had to evolve. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to do it. I'll tell you that.
And Coop, I will jump on to that too. I mean, and the thing is, as much as you evolve and people do make mistakes in the early days too, I mean, it's not something that ever really goes away. I would say in the beginning, maybe you make more frequent mistakes because you're still trying to figure a lot of things out. But as you go on, you kind of learn and you get into, a better, more experienced pace. But, from time to time, you still make mistakes. I mean, I know you've made mistakes recently. I've made mistakes recently. Even Charlie Minato. I mean, he's we all do. I mean, like last year, Charlie Minato incorrectly reported that one of my closest best friends, Jonathan Carnegie, fired off all his staff from La Flor Dominicana during the pandemic, which was not true. And that was incorrectly reported. And I'll throw that out there. But I've done it, and I know you've probably done it too. But it's still, you learn from it, and you keep on going, and it just makes you better. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I think I got to give you a lot of credit. I know when you went through the whole Cigar of the Year thing last year, I really want to say it was an unfortunate thing what happened with that, and you guys handled it so professionally. And I really think that you guys learned a lot from it. Not that you went into that with bad intentions or it was a bad idea, but you learned a lot from that, and I can see how you've carried that over. Like Bear and I talked a lot about it. We just like this was not something that was this was done with good intentions to be a positive message, and unfortunately, some things went wrong with that, and but I think the professionalism that was handled with Matt. For you both should be really commended on that. It was so good for media to see that. Not that I felt bad it happened to you, but the way you kind of dealt with it, I think was a good example for media and how to handle things like that. So I know I learned some things from that as well. If that ever happens, similar thing happened to me, how I would respond back to it. And you guys were truly professionals.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, you and Bear, I remember both personally reached out to me about it, and I really appreciated that from both.
Yeah,
of you guys. It was just, it was one of those situations. So I don't do reviews like you do. You and I have had, private conversations of, why I don't do it and why you do it and how you feel about it and how I feel about it. And that was a decision that I made with my brand not to do it. And so, but part of that is, while you do reviews and your cigar of the year is kind of built off of that, I don't do reviews, and Nicole doesn't do reviews, but we still wanted to have that forum to, be part of that game. Like, well, we still smoke cigars and we still have things that we like and we want to, honor somebody. So we tried to do it in a way that, you know, makes up for like, well, we don't just look back at like the reviews and stuff that we used or other aspects. We tried to be like, all right, well, let's let our audience vote on it. And, you know, it was our first crack at it. And, you know, maybe we didn't do the best setup, but, you know, we had never done anything like that before. So we definitely learned from it. I not in a million years saw, I mean, I guess you could see how maybe it could have been messed with, but I never saw how that particular situation it happened like that.
Yeah.
That was just, I think that kind of shocked a lot of us. We were like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, you have some brands on there that are some pretty big brands, and then here comes a relatively new, very young boutique brand, and there's thousands of votes coming in overnight. And by the way, John Carney says to me, bro, I can't get 4,000 people to vote for an LFD cigar from our fan base that fast. Like,
Yeah.
it's not happening. So, you know, it was what it was. And we just said, and in fairness to everyone, it would just scrap it and move on, because I'm not going to try to continue and put tape on it and make it look good. And then no one will have
wasn't
taken
gonna
it
work.
seriously. So it's like, just cut your losses and move on, and we'll try again this year. And this year we'll go into it with a much stronger approach, and it will be successful.
So Matt and Coop, I think you guys are kind of skipping ahead. So we're gonna audible. I think we already talked about this. So let's bring it in. And Dan kind of brought it up in the chat. He gave you an enormous compliment to Matt. He said that you and Nicole and John have had such high integrity with your show, and I think Coop
totally
can agree to that. To your point there. So I think you've already answered the follow up question, Matt, about this. But I'm going to pose this question to you because it's come up. It's come up in a number of different ways, you know, recently for all of us. So the question is revolves around integrity. How did you approach your particular show brand with integrity, and have you had to defend that integrity? Matt, you've already answered the follow-up question, so that's why I'm teeing it up to you first here. I mean, you know, what did you want your brand to represent with integrity? What was most important to you before it was actually put to the test?
Well, I mean, for me, it's going to be, you know, I first and foremost, I try to be. There's a quote that I try to live by, and I'm kind of stealing it from someone else from a previous life, from an industry of my previous days in my sales industry career, and that is, we're serious about what we do, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. I try to put all my effort and work into it, and try to be accurate, and try to be honest, and try to do things the right way. I don't ever try to. I don't get into anything I don't know about, or I don't share information that I'm not confident about, or that it might not be accurate. If I say something, it's because I believe that it is accurate and whatnot. So that's kind of been like my general premise, you know, not lying or fabricating. I just be straightforward. And if I don't know, I'll say, I don't know.
Yep.
And, you know, and I have plenty of friends in the industry, like you guys, that I can always go to and ask if I don't know. And I'm honest, but I don't try to hide. Like some people might try to pretend like they do know. I don't play that game. I don't know. I'll ask like one of 20 people I can ask, and I'll get the right answer, and I'll learn. In terms of kind of like what you were saying, we already touched on it. That particular situation was also one of those things where it happened very fast, and I was faced with it, and I just knew right away. I had a conversation with Nicole. It got real quick, and I assessed the situation, and then I had to take a step back, and I had to speak with Nicole, and I said, okay, this is our problem. There's only two ways we do this. No matter what we choose, there's only two ways you get out of this. You either just be straight up, be like, hey, listen, some shit happened, and that's it. We're done, because it's just not worth it. Or we try to make it look good, and we still give it to someone, but then there's going to be controversy around it. And I try not to do anything that creates any controversy, because look, at the end of the day, I do care what people think and what people say to an extent. And I knew right away that's a situation that I had the option to avoid the controversy. And so I said, well, let's just not even do it. And so that's just kind of where I went with it. Because I was smart enough to know, like, there is an option to just not even go there, and that's just don't do cigar of the year this year, and we'll try again later.
Now, Coop, unfortunately, you're in the position again of longevity. Now, that's an incredible mountain for anyone to climb, Matt. I mean, that was right out the gate.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that it was, and like I said, how it was handled was so great. Just because that is a lot. Even doing 10 years, that would have been a lot for me. Yeah.
I have to say, if I may, it's one of those lessons that I learned from my dad. I don't want to be too specific, but what I will say is, and I hope I'm not giving this information away for anything else you have planned later, but one thing that people might not know about me is that I grew up in a family that was very close to Major League Baseball. And I know Bear and Coop know this, but I grew up kind of in the Fenway Park family, in the Red Sox organization. My dad has worked in that organization since 1999. And so my dad's one of those guys who, we're in the same industry. We're both electricians. And so I'm in, I kind of came up behind my dad, and I learned a lot from him. And growing up in that, and he's very serious about what he does, and he takes himself very professionally. He always tries to do things the right way, present the right image, from the way you talk to people to the way you dress, the whole thing. Even in a non-white collar environment, he took it all very seriously. And so in growing up in that environment, I always kind of was reminded, and I learned from him, like being around celebrities and famous baseball players, like to handle yourself a certain way and to act a certain way and carry yourself with a certain level of respect. And don't give anyone a reason to hold anything against you or be negative. Don't just handle yourself very professionally. I learned that mentality of professionalism growing up, even as a child, from my dad. And then when I became an adult, and I actually worked for my dad, and I worked alongside my dad in the same industry, that message grew even louder for me. And that's a skill in an etiquette, I guess, that you can use anywhere. It's not like it's specific to one thing. It's a level of self-respect and respect for others and the way you handle yourself. So that I would say that's kind of where I get it from. And I took that into this and a lot of, and everything else I do, just how to handle myself and to think, how will this be perceived by anybody at any time? So that's just kind of, I guess, where it comes from for me.
No, I tend to translate a lot of my father's life lessons into everything I do as well, and Coop knows this too.
Yep.
And I think it's imperative. I think it's imperative to have some kind of purpose to what you're doing, whatever it is, whether it's being an electrician, or whether it's covering cigar media, or whether it's sales, or whether it's tens of thousands of other professions. I'm just naming the ones that we happen to be involved in. But if you don't approach things with a clear line of defined integrity, and first of all, knowing what that definition is, then I think you're doomed to failure, because you're constantly going to be making excuses for yourself. You're constantly going to be looking for the out. You're constantly looking to point the finger a different direction. When honestly, and this is a lesson that my father taught me, the easiest solution, and if you think about it, gentlemen, it really is. The easiest solution is to point the finger right where it belongs, and that's right here.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because like you said, Matt, and Coop, you've fallen on your sword plenty of times. As well, I've seen it. You're the first to admit when you're wrong. You're the first to admit when you've missed something, which is rarely ever, because you get a lot right. But I think it goes to I think that's why you get a lot right. I think that's why you've built up such a reputation in this business. And I think, Matt, that's why you've had such early success. Is that the two of you have approached it with very albeit differently, and we're going to get into more differences here soon, but similarly in the fact that you're approaching it with integrity. So we were going to talk about this later on, but it kept coming up. I was like, hey, we're gonna audible on this. But Coop, I'm interested. Like, is there an infamous Coop story that I haven't heard, or maybe our audience hasn't heard about, where your integrity was put to the test?
Mute again. The case, and this actually happened on the primetime show, and it was very early on. And Aaron had come to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about getting Charlie Minato on the show?" Right? And I said, "Hey, this is great. Let's do it." Right? So we reached out to Charlie. He agreed to do the show, and it was kind of billed as this. We didn't bill it like this, but people had this like, "Hey, this is going to be the first time these two guys are sitting down together. This is going to be like epic." And there was an expectation from a large group of people that we were going to attack Charlie Minato on his hair, on his flavor notes, just kind of like. And when we didn't do that, there was people, we got blasted by a lot of people when we didn't do that, right? And our attitude, and Barry, this, every guest is treated the same. We're not going to disrespect the guests, and they're taking their time. We're going to make them feel welcome. We want to have a conversation with them. If the conversation doesn't go well, maybe we don't have them back next time. But it was a very good conversation. We stuck to our guns. We took some hits on that. But in the long haul, it paid dividends for us, because there were other people who saw that show that didn't really want to see that. And we started getting a lot of compliments from people like, you guys did a great show with Charlie. You guys were professional about it. Like, so we kept to our integrity there of saying, we're not gonna go down a rat hole just to create some entertainment here, right? Because that's not what we do. And like I said, I think it actually built I think the half wheel coupe thing has got it's healthy right now in terms of we have some competition, but it's healthy competition. It's not like cutthroat. And because I'm very happy that we stuck to our guns with that, and did that. So, I think that was our biggest test we had with that.
Looking back on that, Coop, like and I mean, some of the folks that gave you harsh criticism of that were people you would consider, even to this day, consider close friends, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and look, I know, and look, there were others who I didn't know. It's something. Yeah, I'm not gonna, certain people have opinions of Charlie, right? And I don't want to hit them on that, but those weren't. Yeah, some of them I know very well though. But like I said, there were people who didn't know that they were just like, we're not tuning into you again. Like, this is BS. You pandered to him. Like it was like, that's the type of thing we got. We may have lost some audience, but I think we gained more of an audience in the long term with it. So, we weren't going to make those people happy. And what we're gonna sacrifice the values that we have for a little entertainment that that's no. Other ways, hopefully we can entertain. But we weren't going to do that. And Aaron and I never, and we've talked as well doing this. We never deviate from that. We just keep it, and there was a whole thing with, remember I was asked to do the debate with the infamous Skip and Jeff thing. No, we're not. No, we're not doing that. Right.
That ended well for you. That was about the only person it ended well for.
No, it ended bad for me. It was my day off, and my phone was going off like in the morning. That was, but I got out of that real fast.
Still
right?
bitter about that. Not the fallout or anything, guys. I could have slept in.
I could, it was the hell from work. But so again, we have a way of doing this. We have sponsors, we have strategic partners, we have people we don't know as well. But everyone on a show gets an equal shot to feel welcome. And if you want your brand covered news-wise, there's some criteria we have. If you follow the criteria, you're going to get it, and we're not going to play favorites on that. So we give everyone an equal chance for news, and the people who don't get the news complain because we have to work in a framework. We just can't work like the Wild West. So, people complain when we don't do that. But again, we can't make everyone happy. We have to have a framework to work by. But if you kind of, and it's not a hard framework. if you kind of can work with us, everyone's going to get an equal shot at that. So I think we've nailed that piece down as well.
Yeah, there was a guy who was, I'm not gonna mention any names, but there was a guy who was doing a cigar show for a little while, and I don't think he does it anymore. And I remember there was a time when he had said to me, "Oh yeah, we are gonna have so and so on the show, and we're gonna have someone else. So and so is also gonna be on the show, and we're gonna bring up this bad thing that their company did, and then we're gonna give this
Another
dude a
show.
hard time." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I was like, "I'll watch that show because I want to see how this dumpster fire goes
I was
down."
going to say the dumpster fire that ensues.
Because all that is not for nothing. Like, I understand that some people take what we do as like, oh well, these guys can just kind of do what they want, and if they want to alienate someone, they can. The reality is, could we all do that? Probably. But are the respected people like ourselves going to? No,
No.
because the only person that really hurts in the long run is yourself, because the majority of people are going to remember, like, and this is just as an example, let's say someone goes on to ELOSOFUMAR and then Bear like rips into them and be like, oh yeah, like that was funny, like they put the guy, oh yeah, but someone's always gonna be like, yeah, but you notice how Bear was the one just throwing jabs at him the whole time. Bear put him in a bad spot. Bear made him look bad. Bear asked him questions that like probably shouldn't have asked, to put it like, all that does is just makes you look like the asshole. And that's not, I think I speak for all of us here when I say that that's not what we're all about. So it's
No.
not about getting someone on the show and alienating them, because that doesn't help anybody.
Well, yeah, and I think
No, right.
that's a great point. And Coop, not to put too much of a spotlight on you back on this, but I mean, look, you've been doing this longer than both of us combined, and I mean, you are well known as to be a very beloved person in the industry, and the Tuesday Night Cigar Club is actually in the chat right now. Matt and Jason, those guys do a great job.
Great job.
And but that was something, I mean, he was open about it too, and he's said it several times, and they repeated it again tonight, how they were very weary of your constructive criticism at first.
No, they
but
were, and by the way, they helped me out. These guys, Matt was a help to me on stuff, and that's feedback he gave me that I think was needed. I'll be honest, because sometimes we get edgy, Matt. We get edgy there, and we do take on some things, and we were throwing flames. We've tried to dial that back a bit. I think we've talked about that. We don't want to be Howard Stern. We want to be Mike and Mike. You know what I mean? I think that's what we want to be, hard hitting, but we don't want to be Howard Stern. And I think we were at times. I'll say me. I'll put this on me. I think I was throwing flames at some points, and I had to dial that back. So Matt was a big help to me, and that's important. Guys like in the media, like these guys were respected to give me the feedback. I had to listen to that and take it. Don't take it. No, I have to look at this like I got to get better. So I appreciate stuff like that.
Well, and you in your own right too, Coop. Again, as someone who's built this reputation and is so well beloved. I mean, you've had to mend fences. With some, you've had to mend fences with them as an example, but even people in the industry that we interview and stuff, and that's that's a foreign concept to a lot of folks who may follow you and consider to be fans of yours. That has been a difficult position you've been in. I mean, there's a major manufacturer that we all know who thinks I don't like him or his cigars, and which is just patently absurd. I mean, there's plenty of people in this world I don't like, and Matt, was kind enough earlier to say that I wasn't an asshole. Yeah, I can be the biggest dick ever, but I try not to be, because that's just not the right way to do it. But I think people, I mean, this is people's personal lives. This is their livelihoods, and this is their pride and their joy and their blood, sweat, and tears. It's our blood, sweat, and tears too, and we want to try to do it right, just like they want to try to do it right. So inevitably, that's going to happen. I mean, flames are going to get thrown around. People's feelings are going to get hurt, and it's up to us. And when I say us, I mean everyone, not just the three people on this panel, but it's up to us to take that step forward, to learn from each other. Otherwise, otherwise it's just gonna and it's just going to end in a dumpster fire, like apparently the show that Matt's describing.
Well,
Right.
I just wanted to say too, like, I don't mean like general like criticism or I mean like, because I don't want it to get taken the wrong way. Like, I mean, like, don't have any kind of negative anything. Like, yeah, Bear's right. There's going to be times when hard questions will get asked, and it's part of what we do. I specifically kind of meant like when you have someone on the show to purposely go out of the way to just make them look bad. That's what I was building on, not just the general like. Yeah, go ahead, Coop.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I know the show you were talking about because they reached out to me as well, to do the same thing. And you just want no part of that. That's not you're not going to give a hatchet job to someone. It's not what we do.
All that is a self-suicide, really, because you just paint yourself as, you create a reputation for like, okay, well, every time a guy goes on, all you do is focus on like the negatives and just try to make the guy look bad instead of being like, well, yeah, like I go on and like he asked me tough questions, but maybe you don't like some of those questions, but you also have a respect for like, but they're good questions and they're meaningful questions. It's not just going out of their way to make me look like, a piece of shit. It's what we do. We ask, like Bear was saying, we might ask hard questions, but we ask what we believe is the right question, and we don't purposely do it to make anyone look bad.
There were 2 points that I had, like what I was doing, that again, this really kind of put my integrity into question as well. I want to just mention the 2019 IPCPR coverage, where I was very critical of the IPCPR. I mean, and I've had a good relationship with them. That put some bumps in it. There's no question about it. I think we've moved on with that. But I went after them, and Bear, you know how hard I went after. We both went after them on that. After that was a disaster of a trade show. I mean, you can't sugarcoat that, right? And the other one, and you're aware of this one, Bear, was my when I kind of said that Rudy Giuliani wasn't going to save the cigar industry. Now, I don't talk about politics, but I talk about the politics of cigars. And I mean, I'm telling you, I got threats not to go into people's store. I mean, it was bad how dare I go after Rudy, and I had to stick with that. I wasn't trying to hatchet job either one of them, but people look for opinions sometimes, and you have to give an opinion, and the truth might hurt. We're not doing what what the example Matt gave with this other podcast. That's a difference. They were trying to just crucify someone. That wasn't. I hope it wasn't the case in either of those 2 examples I gave, as well as the Charlie. And that's. I mean, you have to be able to go to sleep at night. But there are mistakes made. I mean, I've made mistakes. There's no question about it. And I've made some mistakes as recently as this year that I had to correct some things on. So, that's you have to learn from that and be better from that, as we have to do. So I hope we've done a good job with that.
No, I think not to pat ourselves on the back or anything here, but there are tough questions that we need to ask sometimes.
Yeah.
And Luciano brought up a very interesting question that I think we all need to look at internally as well. If we're going to be honest with ourselves, and I think that's something that we all do is try to that. And that's, I mean, I know that I've asked some tough questions on this show. Now it's all about the way that you frame it. Like Matt was suggesting, like in his example, which was purely fictional, by the way. I haven't teed up anyone poorly, at least I don't think so intentionally. But it's how you approach the question. You have to ask the tough questions. You have to ask the questions sometimes, but it's all in the context of how you frame it. It's not necessarily throwing every guest a rope or giving them an out necessarily, but approaching it with enough respect for the individual that you happen to be having a discussion with. But also, expecting that same respect in return and getting a fair answer. Could we not agree?
Bear, I agree. And I'll say something else that Matt hasn't felt this yet. Bear, you've started to feel it. I really feel it. Cigar of the year. Matt, just wait till you get a few years into this and you start getting the phone calls about Cigar of the Year, like who's left off. And that's a clusterfuck every year. I mean, it's just like you have to stick to your guns on that. I mean, there's some real whining that goes on in this industry. And then what happens? They throw the sponsor, the sample, They throw anything possible other than maybe that the cigar didn't perform. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but that's it's amazing when that happens. So you guys, Matt, there's something, I don't want to scare you, but you'll handle it well. I know that. Bear, you're starting to feel it now, 3 or 4 years into doing this now. Tell me it's not true. You've started to feel it already.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had to give this
You gotta keep your integrity.
the standard answer a couple of times. Well, why wasn't the cigar on? Or and I'm like, did you look at the criteria? It is not. I never said your cigar wasn't good. Like your point earlier, Matt. I don't review cigars either on my show. I review cigars for another Cigar Media website, and sometimes it plays into my list, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's why I framed my criteria the way it was. I wanted to take a unique spin on the cigar of the year, just like you did. You guys wanted to do this really cool poll with it. I thought it was pretty awesome. I was like, oh, this is a different change of pace. From than when the rest of the world does it, for the most part. And even Coop does something different. Everyone kind of heckles him a little bit because his cigar of the year takes 2 months to find out what it is, but it's terrific, man. It's the ultimate countdown. What is what I call it. We
were the first countdown.
The
by the way,
anticipation kills me. I'm like, God.
There were no countdowns. We invented the countdown in Coop. I'm very proud of that. There were none of the publications were doing countdowns. I was the first to do it in 2010. And then now a lot of people do it, not daily like I do it. They may do 5 a day, or they break it up. But yeah, the Cigar Coop one was the original. I'm proud of that.
David Garofalo still tries to. Not try to. I think he does. He's always saying, hey, not for nothing, but. Do you know who the first person to give a cigar of the year was? It was me, and then everyone else started doing it.
He was doing it back. I think the problem was that if anyone else was doing it, there was no way of knowing because there was no internet even when he started doing this. It was like 92. He was doing it, yeah. So and he has a list, so I know it goes back that far.
Yeah. Was it 92? Was that the first year he did?
I think it was 92 is when he started.
Because he's been around longer than like Cigar Aficionado and all of those people. I mean, yeah. So yeah, and he has. If you go to the Salem store, I think it's still there. He had a plaque for a while. Like it goes back. It was like Rocky Patel, like 1999 or something like that. So yeah, I know he's been doing it a long time, but I remember it came up in a conversation recently too. He was like, "It's like, yeah, I did it first, not for nothing, but and then everyone else started doing it."
Well, that's what happens, Dave. When you're around longer than everybody else, there's a lot of firsts you did, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Longevity proves longevity, and longevity that proves a lot of things. And there's a lot of things that Dave's done wrong. There's a lot of things that Coop's done wrong. In their long history, and unfortunately, Matt, you and I have a lot to look forward to in terms of the things we're going to get wrong. It's going to happen,
and I'll do a lot more, and I'm going to do a lot more wrong down the line. I mean, I didn't even talk about the article where I got the FDA ruling wrong on the Halloween Massacre article. That was another disaster, and that was because I took a shortcut that day and I didn't validate. I rushed the story out and I paid the price. Lucky Gun Loop caught it very early, so and I was wrong. So yeah.
Well, if I wasn't so reliant on just, I won't say cheap, but mediocre technology. Yep. I mean, my 100th episode, which I planned to a T, I even had the timing down right and everything. And I get Pete Johnson to agree to show. And this is before Pete and I have really built a really fine relationship, which is great. It kind of stemmed off of this 100th take. There was absolutely just. I mean, it had the potential to be a dumpster fire, but it ended up being something pretty organic and cool. But my internet cuts out, my electricity goes out in the middle of the show, and Pete was patient enough to hang in there, and he realized that something happened, and then he pulls up Facebook and he starts answering questions from the chat. I mean, it was pretty.
He's hosting the show. He started hosting the show that night.
And it happened again when I had the McAuliffe gents on, Dan and Andy, and it happened recently again with Jack Serrano. And luckily, I prepare every guest now for the possibility of it. But some things you can't prepare.
You could lose a whole show like Aaron and I did once. We
That's
lost
true.
the episode 6.
Which terrifies me. Which terrifies me every
Yeah.
time I go live on this. Got to be honest. From
It-
that lesson,
well, we were-
from that
we-
lesson that you
we-
taught me, because it terrifies the shit out of me every time.
Well, that was the technology we were using Google Hangouts back then, which was a big mistake. So that was kind of what precipitated getting off of Google Hangouts. Just because that was not meant to be. When you start building a show up, you got to have the platform for it. So
John and I lost the first Smokin Tabacco show. We got 22 minutes in. The whole thing just shit the bed. Now,
yeah, it
I
happened.
will say, the fault, like, I'll say this publicly. I'll get shot for it later. The fault lies on John on that one. he had a shit laptop that just, and he knew it too. And he was like, "Dude, I didn't need a laptop. This laptop just couldn't handle doing a live broadcast."
It was the best show that you've ever done, though, right, Matt? Because no one will ever
Oh, yeah.
know the difference, right? It's the most riveting 22 minutes of live broadcasting.
Oh yeah.
No one gets to know it.
Oh yeah. It's funny. But yeah, so I mean, we've been there too, and it sucks, when you go down, you're like, people were watching, and then it's just like that you're sitting there in front of a blank screen, you're like, what do we do? And you have that moment of panic. And Bear, I can only imagine with you, that was our first episode. That no one expects that to be like the Grammys. You're already doing big episodes, and you drop down. And I'll be honest with you, it's is prepared and as well set up as we are. There's always that chance that for whatever reason you lose it, and then you're like, oh, damn it. And then sometimes you just can't control that. It's beyond your control.
No, I no, it absolutely is, and I think that's you have to have a kind of a humor. You have to have good humor about this, this. Otherwise, you're just gonna go batshit crazy. And that there's a lot of things that Coop and I have these discussions, and I've talked Coop off the ledge a few times, just because, and I deal with anxiety too from time to time. But I mean, I remember the interview right before we had the opportunity to interview Hanky Kellner and Eladio Diaz, and he was just concerned about like this and that and like stuff that I'm just literally sitting there, and I'm like, hey man, just we're good, we're ready, like it's all good, it's gonna be fine.
I was like, the axle was so tightly wound that day in the Dominican Republic. That was tight. I was tight that day for sure before that interview.
Definitely. So I kind of wanted to we've kind of answered some of these questions already, just kind of how this discussion's kind of developed organically. But I'm going to pose this question to you, Matt, and then I want to, and you've kind of answered it in some way or form or fashion, but I'm going to be asking more direct right now. And then Coop, I actually want you to bookend the show and answer a little bit towards the end here.
Sure.
So Matt, what is it that you've learned in your time, specifically from what we'll call old school media? And this could be someone like Coop. This could be something like Dave, who's been around, as we were just kind of busting his balls about, or Cigar Aficionado. Some of these older cigar media outlets that have been doing this for decades now. And Coop, you qualify because you're 10 years plus, so you are in the plural of that.
So
But what have you learned specifically from them that you've been able to take and approach in the short tenure that you've had?
Well, when I first started in media, Dave was the one who gave me my first start with the Ashholes podcast. So I got a firsthand experience learning from him directly. Just kind of like the ins and outs of the generals of like the do's and don'ts of podcasting and media as a whole. So I had like someone, I had him specifically as a mentor to learn from. And it was really good because, everyone knows, Dave's very successful at the Cigar Authority. You've all heard of it. I know you have. I'm not even going to ask if you have, because I know you have. And anyone who hasn't heard of the Cigar Authority probably just hasn't been smoking long enough. I don't know. So to have someone like that, it was key. And one of the things that Dave said to me, and I try to take this advice, but I will admit after every show it becomes harder to do, was one of the big things was, well, podcasts shouldn't be like 2 hours long. It's too long. The Cigar Authority is not supposed to be 2 hours long, but it is. The ideal time is like, half hour to 45. And I tried to take that, and over time I learned like I can't do it. There's just too much to do, and my show keeps getting longer. But no, I mean I've learned kind of. I learned with my, a lot of stuff we already talked about. I learned with just how to handle myself in certain situations, um, like with the Cigar of the Year. I learned from that experience. I learned preparation. I've seen shows where people go into them unprepared, and if you're really good, not that you should go into it unprepared, but if you're really good, you can maybe save yourself. But there's always that chance where you won't be able to, and then you're going to make a fool of yourself, and you get information wrong, you say the wrong thing. It happened to me recently. I had a guest on the show, and I was a little unprepared, and that was on me. There's no excuse for it. And I had said something to someone, and they were like, well, actually I already do that. And I was like, oh. And I'm like, well, I just look like an idiot. So I would say preparation is one, learning from people who are prepared and those who are not. I've seen podcasts who are like very unorganized and mismatched, and I see the product that they present with that strategy, and it's not great. Because I mean, when at the end of the day, if you're unorganized, you don't really have anything to build off of. So that's probably the biggest thing. Number one is just preparation, whether it's the content, the questions, doing the homework on the guest, or even just your setup, being like, have everything you need, make sure everything's working properly. Technical issues are something that we all are familiar with. Technical issues happen, but they are less likely the more prepared you are, and the more you make sure you have the right stuff, you're set up the right way, you test it, you do all those things, you get on early, you don't, your show starts at 10:30. We didn't just log in at 10:30 and be like, all right, here we go. Like, you put in the time to get everyone on here, set everything up, make sure everything's good, make adjustments. So preparation is, like, I would say, the number one thing, and probably the most important thing, because without it, I mean, what do you have? You're just slapping something together, and it looks like there's no effort. And someone watching the show, and you talk about sponsorships, people who are going to invest money into your show and your brand, they're going to see that, and they're going to be like, why am I going to invest in this guy? He's not organized. The viewers are going to see it. Why am I watching this show? They just look like a bunch of idiots up there talking a bunch of nonsense. They don't know what they're doing. They don't look like they're professional or present themselves the right way. So people see that too. I mean, it's all about what you put into it. So that's probably what I've learned. Just watching the way, even like the way you do it, the way Coop does it, the way David does it, the way, the Dojo does it, KMA does it, to name some people who are very successful, just kind of following, that lead of preparedness. I can't stress it enough. And that's why I go on about it so much, is because it is so important.
So here's something that we were talking about earlier about falling on the sword, and I think that is something that I learned very long ago is being prepared, Matt, to your point. But at the same time, if you're not 100% sure, you can frame the question that way. Mm-hmm. Because again, we're all here to learn. Yes, we're here to, like, as hosts of a podcast or hosts of a show, you're driving the conversation, yes, but at the same time, we're all here to learn something. And so what we can do as all the students, essentially, because that's what we all are, you can frame the question in a way that's like, hey, I may be wrong on this, but to my understanding or to my knowledge, X, Y, and Z. And then in the example that you gave, we actually already do that. Okay, well, fantastic. I've learned something about it. And so certainty, like, it's like the age-old adage that attorneys, like, don't ever ask a question that you don't know the answer to. I have fallen victim to that so many times. I've asked questions where I didn't know where I was going to go. It happened earlier tonight. That's the first time Coop's ever shared with me. Coop and I have been friends for over 4 years now, and we've talked about some pretty deep stuff, and that's the first time I've ever heard him say about his family that doesn't support him, and it's just my heart's aching over here. It really is.
It's troubling.
I try to be positive sometimes. So, but yeah, it was hard not to say it, especially after this past week. So,
And Coop, we're going to be asking this to you later down the road here, but just to kind of move along here, because I think we've a couple other things before we're going to get into some more fun segments. When I talked about the approach to coverage, now we've all talked about our unique styles and everything as well already, but this one has to do with what do you like about your counter in the frame of this discussion. So Coop, I'll start with you. What do you like about newer media? Some of the newer media brands that have launched in recent years that you've kind of seen, you've literally seen from the start. What do you like about their approach?
I like that a lot of people try to take a fresh approach, and Matt, and the reason why I think Matt and Nicole, one of the stars, is I go back to Fred Ruiz's book, Be the Line. And I mentioned this book a lot, where basically he talks about how to differentiate yourself. The idea of there's a bunch of lemons on the shelf, but the lime's going to stand out. And, I look at like Bear, what you've done with your show. Good example is the whole charity segment, right? Which, again, a fresh idea. Matt doing the sports segment and the soap segments, right? Fresh ideas. You bring a fresh idea to the table. And the new media people I think that are really good about it, bring that fresh approach to it, which I think is important, because we don't need the carbon copy stuff. And as these new brands come out, I kind of really like it. There's some of some of the YouTube guys have even done some unique things as well. So I kind of think that those, as long as you're bringing new ideas to the table and not like 20 people trying to do the same thing, that's where I really respect the guys who are trying, opening up other avenues here and just showing the creativity that the media side has.
What is it about, like, and so that's another thing we could have brought up earlier with your Lancero hatership. You don't hate YouTubers. Let's get that out in the open, right? You don't hate YouTubers.
No, I don't. Whether you're a YouTuber, a blogger, a podcaster, it doesn't matter. The issues I've had with, maybe it seems like the YouTubers were more in the spotlight, were more ethical types of things that I saw going on that I didn't like. But look, the YouTubers and the Instagram people are where we were 10 years ago as the bloggers, right? And I think we have to be open to that. That's another form of media that's rising, but it has to be done. It can't be the Wild West like it was 10 years ago. It has to be, there's simple things like produce content, things like that. And just have a general respect for the industry and the people in it. And if I've been critical of some YouTubers, or I've also been equally critical of some podcasts and some bloggers in that case. So it's not look, YouTube is, we know a lot of YouTubers, they're our friends. Bob the Cigar guys, I consider him a friend. The Stogie Review guys were the original YouTubers. So, we want these guys to do well. It's not, and there were other people in the media who didn't have necessarily the same opinion of that, though. I'll say that, and that's okay too. But that was my opinion. We have to kind of embrace this form of media.
So that the same question kind of goes to you, Matt. And I really want to, before I let you answer, Matt, I really want to say really quickly, there's a really riveting conversation going on in the chat right now that's going back and forth between some of our audience, and it's really great stuff. And I want our audience to know that I'm not necessarily ignoring it, but it's going on and kind of in the background here, and we've got kind of a structure that I've set up. Again, I'm not ignoring it at all. I think it's a very, very great discussion.
It's good. It's really good. It's a very good point being made by everyone there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. I also would want to do that, just like I try to. I would like to have a I would like to have do that that discussion and those points justice rather than
can I say
going
one point?
on the fly.
Can I say one point?
Please.
Luciano's on our show Thursday with Aaron, and I'm going to give him an opportunity to hit some of these points. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah, so just like Luciano, I think this is good conversation to put in there.
Yeah, and listen, if you're listening live, if you're watching live, pay attention to the chat because it's very important questions that are being brought up.
I think it's great stuff. Yep.
If you're listening to this later via podcast, come back to my ELOSOFUMAR page, go to the live broadcast posts, and check out the discussion that's going on about the labor issues that are going on in the cigar industry. Some brilliant points being made by Luciano Mireles, a manufacturer of above reproach, in my opinion.
Great guy
in a lot of ways. Just I have tremendous amount of admiration for him. So this is
what
really
a job
great
he's done.
100%.
What a job he's done in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Sure. So I digress, but but thank you, Luciano, sincerely.
Yep.
Matt, just to bring it back to you here, I want to kind of ask the same thing of you. What have you taken from old media, or what have you really admired about them that you wanted to differentiate yourself? Yes, we already kind of discussed that point, but what have you taken from them, similar to the way that Coop has admired about new media?
Well, I would associate it with, and I've had these conversations with Coop and some of the older guys as well, as when a lot of those guys came into the scene, media in general was frowned upon.
Oh yeah.
I know there was a time when even the trade show, that they didn't want media in there, and there are some people who fought for that. And when people like Coop, first were at the trade show as media, it was like, oh, like the media's here, they're asking questions, the eye roll, and I feel like there was a level of respect maybe that just had to be earned, like, and by that I mean I think that those guys had to just show, like, we're not just here. And I know, and before I get too far into this rabbit hole, Coop, you and I've had this conversation. There are people who've gone to trade shows who are media, so to speak. And for those who are not watching, if you're listening, the air quotes media, using that as a vessel to get to these trade shows, just because they want a fangirl, or they want to trick or treat for samples and whatnot, and just meet these guys. Like, oh, they want to meet Nick Perdomo and Jonathan Drew and Carlos Fuente, and doing it for the wrong reasons. And I think that there's always like that kind of fear with people, and I think that's kind of a fear that I think a lot of those people had in the beginning. Like, well, who are all these media people? And then over time, they were kind of like the trailblazers. Coop, I put you in that category as a trailblazer, someone who did it for the right reasons, who's respected the game, so to speak, and you earn that respect with those guys, and you show, like, no, I'm just here to share in the industry. I'm not a cigar maker, I'm not a retailer, but I love the industry and I want to help. And my approach to helping is, I want to get your information out. I want, what do you have that's coming? What's new? What are you making? What do you want people to know so that they can go and buy your product? I will be the vessel that gets that information to them. And, it proved to be like, that's very valuable, and people get to know. And the same thing with the bloggers, and the bloggers were a huge thing, because, those are the people who are going online and publishing information and talking about stuff, talking about what's new and talking about what they like, what they don't like. And just because they don't like something doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it. It's what, it's they personally didn't like it, and it's why, but maybe it works for someone else. All good information. And I think that what I take from that is the people who came before me as like a previous generation, and Coop being in, like I said before, like a trailblazer among the trailblazing class of that generation, opened the doors for people like me to come in and follow behind and learn from, like we were talking about before, learn from them, learn what works, what doesn't work, and make those decisions and kind of form the way that I want to do that. But I think a lot of credit has to be given to those people. Now, I'm not trying to steer away from this, and I think that you guys are going to get into this later. So I'll just lightly just stroke it on the back here. That being said, I take from them all the things that they do right and the reasons why, they are a respected part of the industry. And I think there are some people, and Coop, we've also talked about this,
Yep.
there's people who emerge, and whether they just don't realize how involved this, job is that we all undertake, or if they just emerge for the wrong reasons, those people don't last. And I think we've gotten to a point now where the media has a level of respect, and people just know who good media is, and there's an expectation of what good media is. And when you don't meet that expectation, you don't get that respect, and you don't last long, because you're not doing it in a way that I think is a standard that people like yourself have set. And that's just what I've taken from it, is there is a method to the madness, so to speak, and how we all do cigar media, and that I think is a critical part as well.
Yeah, man, you're right on point with that. The one thing that you talk about the trailblazing piece. The one thing I wasn't in on was when the decision was finally made to bring online media in, and I've been critical of online media laying down on the rule that you can't ask for samples at the trade show, right? Even though it's not enforced. And people say, why do you get all wrapped around the axle for that? Because they put a separate set of rules for online media versus print media, right? Print media does not have that restriction. So why am I still paying the price 8 or 9 years down the road for a couple of guys who sinned? And here's what I don't want that to happen if the YouTubers and Instagram people are coming in, we all should be under a set of rules that works for everybody. So, I think that's important, and I think this is going to become a bigger question of those mediums getting into trade shows in the next few years. So I think it's an important point to make as well. As some of us now become the older guard or have been the older guard, I think we need to just look out and make sure that media stays healthy as a whole.
So just to segment off of it for 2 seconds, just to kind of peel back the curtain on a point that Matt made earlier, and to talk about the responsibility and stuff. I think it's a responsibility to our guests and to our audience to also gauge who we're actually speaking with. Like, I kick the show off in my same exuberant way every week. And there's some people that are comfortable with it and kind of match the intensity of it, right out the gate too. And then there's people that are caught right off guard of it. Like we were mentioning Charlie Minato earlier. I think I really shocked that poor guy a little bit when I kicked off the show. And but then I was able to dial it back because he obviously, it obviously shook him. And I want my guests to feel comfortable because I think that delivers the best quality product. To that point, there's a lot that when I go into research mode for these shows, I think I listen to a lot of interviews. I read a lot of interviews because I want to get an idea, I want to get ideas, yes, of what to talk about, but more importantly, I want to get to know the person. I want to know I want to know how they talk. I want to know how they like answer questions. And we call these things idiosyncrasies, but I think they're very important. Some of us, we all catch criticism for sometimes using like the same words all the time. Like I think me and Aaron are in a battle of who uses the word fantastic more often in a sentence, for example. And my pronunciation of words, I pride myself on good diction, but Cigar Craig, who's been doing this for a long time, actually reached out to me recently. He was like, hey, I've just really recently, he's like, I love your show, but he's like, I just want to make sure that you're using a word, and I want to make sure that I'm mishearing it because you're saying it wrong. And it was totally my mispronunciation of a word. I know exactly what he was talking about. I was like, man, I'm sorry. I gotta be better. I gotta be better about this.
He got me on those too.
But it's important. It's important to take that. It's important to take that approach. I think the thing that I've learned that I've wanted to emulate from old media is that's a standard. You know, Cigar Authority is a standard. Cigar Coop is a standard. Cigar Aficionado is a standard of excellence. And it's something that I want to achieve. I want to achieve it differently because I have a different voice and I have a different agenda that I want to accomplish. But it's still a standard that I want to meet. Now, I would still consider myself relatively new as well. I'll be celebrating 4 years later this year of my podcast. But at the same time, I still consider myself new. But I love some of the new stuff that folks are doing. I love what Matt, Nicole, and John are doing. I love what Matt and Garrett are doing on How About That Cigar.
Yeah.
I thought this past year was awesome with all the new, so many people dipping their toes in the water, so many manufacturers dipping their toes in the water. It's been a fun year from the aspect of where we sit. And I think you all agree. Maybe I'm wrong. Feel free to disagree with me.
There was ultimately it came down a lot didn't survive, and I'm not gonna put the manufacturers in. They had to become content creators, a lot of them, during the pandemic. McAuliffe's done a good job at obviously keeping that going, as well as Fuente. But a lot of people got into it. They realize it's work. They realize it's a lot of work. So and we saw it with the blogs too. Like I always said that if a lot of blogs didn't even last a month, but the people who kept telling me we're going to start a blog were the ones who didn't make it at all. They kept talking about it for like a year, and then it never happened, or it lasted a month. So because they realize the amount of it, and then they get away from the whole point of why they got into cigars is because they want to enjoy cigars, and maybe the media piece just wasn't. They loved having a media piece, but the work to put into it the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, so to speak.
100%. So the last kind of quick question here before we kind of dive into our more fun segments for the night here, gentlemen. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been fantastic. Is the most unique interview that you've done? Not the best, because we don't really want to piss any people off, and I don't want to ask for the worst because we don't want to piss any people off. But the most unique experience where you sat back afterwards and you were like, that was really different. And it could be different, cool. It could be different, not cool. But that was really different. And I kind of want to focus more on the cool way if we could lean that direction. But that was really a unique experience. What was that interview for you thus far? I'll kick things off. I go back to this and I've reflected on this interview a few times. But just to kind of give you guys some context. So like tonight, and like a couple of weeks ago, actually last week and the week before, I've had a guest who I have not met in person on my show. And I've had limited conversation with prior to the show beginning. Lee Marsh, Stolen Throne Cigars, Antoine Reed of Tobacco Business, and now Matt Tabacco. Now, we've engaged each other on social media and we've had some side conversations, comments, what have you. But I still don't get tired of it. And the first experience I had with this was Miguel Chodell of Crowned Heads. I had not met him. I had not talked to him. I asked him to be on my show. I told him what I wanted to talk about, and he loved the idea, and he agreed to be on it. That was it. That was the context of our conversation. He jumps on, and we immediately hit it off. Like, and I mean, when I say hit it off, like we have some of the same loves, like baseball, but obscure shit, like our love of presidents of the United States is really random. And history and some other aspects of it, and even our faith, which is that's a much deeper conversation. But I mean, it was like I was meeting my brother, and that was such an. I mean, I sat back after that interview and I was like, man, damn, that was fun, and I never get tired of it. And I've had several instances like that since, and especially recently, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. Because you're getting to know somebody right off the bat, like firsthand, and it's the coolest experience ever.
I would say I think Coop already knows my answer. based on yeah, look, I can see him chuckling over there too. He knows where I'm going with this, and he knows that it involves him too.
I think I know too.
I think anyone who knows my show knows what my answer is, and if you saw my anniversary show, you know why. And the anniversary show was specifically put together because of this reason, and that is because probably my answer is going to be Matt Booth from Room 101. And I kind of had the same thing. Most of my people who have on the show I've never met in person before either. And Matt was one of those people, and I had very limited communication with him before he came on the show. It was kind of the same thing. I was like, hey, we'd love to have you come on. If you're interested, this is who we are, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, man. I'll totally be on there. Cool. Set up a date. This is how you get on. Awesome, dog. That was all I had. Then he comes on. And, you know, when I told people he was coming on, Bear told me what to expect. Coop told me what to expect. And I was like, okay, yep. All right. And I listen because, you know, I take tips, and I'm like, okay, yeah. All right. I'll, you know, not just, but you don't really, it's not that I don't believe, like, I'm like, no, I value that information, but you don't really get it until you're on there, especially with him. And then you're there and you're like, oh shit, here we go. They were not lying, and they weren't exaggerating. This is real. And the first time he came on my show, it was a great time. I loved it. And I remember getting off, and I mean, I've had some awesome people on the show, and it's been legendary, and it was just an honor. And I love that and appreciate it. But with him, it was just so different from anything else I'd ever done. And it was so out of control, but it was great. And then it was the next night he was on primetime, or maybe it was the week after. I know. No, it was the next day. I think it was literally the next day. He was on. It was
like around that. Yeah, we had him unfortunately booked back to back. Yeah.
Which was, and Coop was all like, "Hey, I didn't know," but I'm like, "Hey, don't worry about it. It's fine. Whatever. Okay. It's okay. Like I don't take anything. Do whatever you got to do."
Yeah, you know, it happens. It's gonna happen. Yeah.
But it actually worked out very well that it happened that way because it was so fresh. So he goes on to primetime the next night, and you know, it was a topic of conversation. And watching the way that Coop dealt with him too was so entertaining. And I came up in conversation a few times, and it just, whenever he's on with Coop, it's so different and entertaining. And the way he gets, just the reactions he gets out of Coop is hilarious. So when we put in the anniversary show together, I was like, you know, I had so much fun with Matt Booth. I think it would be good. It's a celebration show, and he would be wild. It'd be cool. And so I invited him, and he was like, absolutely, I'll be there, whatever you need. And then Nicole said to me, she's like, yeah, there's someone else we have to have on the show. And I was like, who? and we were actually on the air, and she like kind of made that comment to me. So while we're doing a show, I'm like, who's she thinking? Because when she said it, her face lit up. She's like, oh no, God, no. And I was like, who's she thinking? And then she texted me, and she's like, Coop. And I was like, oh, how did I not even see that coming? It's so obvious. Why don't we get the two of them on the show? And it's not even like he went on Coop's show. It's neutral territory for them. They're both the guest, and I can stick them against each other. Well, really, it's just I stick Matt against Coop, and then Coop has to deal with it. And it was great.
Yeah. And I knew what it was going to be. Yeah.
And Bear, I don't... There's a certain part of that show that went down, and I don't know how explicit this show is. Like in terms of like what I can get away with here. But I think you know what I'm talking about. There was a comment that Matt made about Coop that Carney still brings up to me like on a weekly basis. He'll still say like we were in Florida, we were in Miami, you know, a week or so ago, and we're sitting in a lounge and we're hanging out. We were at Empire in Miami, and Carney just looks at me and just randomly just goes, "I still can't believe that Matt Booth said that Coop throws around the dick like Hercules." He's like, he had said, he goes, yeah, Coop's just like one hand on the back of the head.
Yeah, that's why I did that just now. I remember that.
You're not going to get that from almost anybody else. I mean, you're not getting
No.
that from Nick Perdomo or like Steve Soccer, and there's some.
Caldwell were the only other one I could see doing that. But yeah,
It's like you don't get that, and it's so unique. And he does it with such confidence because I think he just doesn't care. He is who he is, and he's comfortable with himself, and that's great, and that's really what life's all about. And props to him. But yeah, that's my answer, and that was pretty easy to explain.
In an industry that is fraught, that's for you, Cigar Craig, fraught with people who are comfortable in their own skin.
Was that the word you were pronouncing wrong?
Yes, because it was coming across as fraught. Like I'm like, yeah, that's the foam off of a beer. So yes, fraught is the word. In an industry that is fraught with people who are so comfortable in their own skin, and you just named a few, right?
Yeah.
Nick Perdomo, Steve Saka, Carlito Fuente, the list goes on, right? This industry is full of them. Nobody is more comfortable with who they are, and it's even more impressive because it is Matt Booth, because of the type of personality he is. It's 100% entertainment 100% of the time, but the sincerity behind him is probably the most intriguing thing about him.
Yeah,
and that's something I've loved about Matt from day one, since the moment I met him. I mean, I asked this guy at a cigar event when I first met him to autograph a box of cigars for me, and he did, and he was so proud of it, and I was so excited. And I turned that box around, and sure enough, his signature was on there, and he drew an illustration of a bear and a penis. And let your imagination run wild, because that's what it was. That was his autograph to me. And I was not mad in the slightest at all. Like a couple of people were like, oh, were you disappointed? Were you wanting something? Were you wanting something sincere? I was like, is this not sincere? like
True. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's what you would expect from Matt Booth. It's like you see something like that, like, the hell kind of autograph is that? Well, it's Matt Booth. I mean, that's authentic.
Matt Ty brings up the perfect metaphor. It's like herding cats on meth in a hurricane. That's a Matt Booth interview.
Oh yeah.
You see, though, but the thing with Matt and I, we do know each other a long time. So I'm not uncomfortable knowing Matt. I know how to play Matt back. I know how to kind of know how to steer that interview a little, but I know what I know what to expect too. But sometimes he'll shock me. I'm not gonna lie to you. So, that one definitely surprised me on that show. I can tell you that.
I'll tell you this for the prospective podcasters for this industry that might be watching or listening. If you're coming up the ranks and you haven't had any real heavy hitters for interviewees yet, Carlito Fuente, Cynthia Fuente, Nick Perdomo, big names, big deal. They come on your show, be prepared. That's gonna, that it'll change your life. It's gonna be serious. Even Jose Blanco, it was a serious episode. But you won't be tested with your podcasting skills until the guy like Matt Booth from Room 101 comes on your show. That's where we separate the men from the boys.
So true story. The first time we interviewed Booth was on Stogie Geeks in 2013. So we're prepping for the show, Paul Asadorian and I. And I go, Paul, just be prepared to expect the unexpected in this interview. I really know Matt well, and I know how this is gonna go. And he's like, he goes, Will, don't worry about this. I'm doing this 10 years. I've seen it all, right? He goes, I got this. Don't worry. And Paul was kind of the lead guy, and I was the color commentator at the time. About 10 minutes into the interview, Paul messages me. He says, we're throwing the script out the window. You were right. And Matt has camera upside down. There's all sorts of antics going on. And that was like one of our biggest shows that we had, and that was like a big game guest we had brought on.
Dude, just look at the way he just sits there and he looks at the camera the whole time. Like,
yeah.
Oh, that's a good impression. That's pretty spot on.
Yeah, he's done it from like he was in his car,
Coop, and then he cuts you off. Coop, tell me, did you have a bowel movement today? Something random, and you're like,
yes.
Where's he going with this?
And he knows what he's doing.
Was
He
it solid?
knows
Yes,
Did
I
you
had.
have to push it out?
It was pleasant.
Did
you
fold
wipe
the
good?
toilet paper or crunch it? Yeah.
Did you have to shower it, or was it good enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Continue. I'm sorry. And it's like, what was that?
So then my job is a real map back in. Yeah.
And then you try to ask them like the juicy questions that you always want to ask, like, so you're coming out with the X, Y, and Z. It's gonna be in 3 sizes. You're gonna offer it in 3 wrappers and blah blah. Who's making this? Who the fuck cares where it's made? Just smoke it, man. That's all that matters. It's a cigar. Who gives a shit who makes it? It could be made under the freeway. It's a good cigar, so smoke it. It's like, all right, well, that's the answer you're gonna get.
Matt, that's uncanny. That's brilliant. Like there's some good impressions that go on in this industry. That's probably one of the best ones I've heard.
That's a really good Matt Booth. I agree.
That's fucking awesome.
You have nailed down.
I just hope that Matt watches it and he sees that and he'll be like, I don't talk that way, man.
But Matt, tell me first. Have you ever smelled calamine lotion? Seriously, have you ever smelled it?
No, because I've never needed to use it. So no, but I can imagine.
But moving on about the Doomsayer or whatever.
Yeah, we did this. We did the John Carney did his soap segment, and he was so intrigued by that. He's like, "Oh, one moment, I'll be back." And he gets up and he leaves. I'm like, "Where the hell did he go?" And he comes back and he has his own soap. And I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." And he's like, "It's the soap for haters. Wash away the hate." And he shows it. I'm like, he's like, "I have it in my guest bathroom, so that way when people come to my house, they can wash their hate off. They don't bring it into my home." And I'm like, okay. He was really prepared for this. I didn't even know he was gonna have his own damn soap, or that it would even be interesting. That's just the kind of guy he is. You never know what you're gonna get with him. You really don't. And when you guys told me, like, listen, he will take the show away from you. I'm like, oh, all right. I'll try to be prepared. And I said something to him, and it started off, like a not a gentle walk in the park, but it was not a full-blown marathon or a mosh pit fight at a death metal show, but it was somewhere in between. It was tolerable. And I made a comment to him within the first 10 minutes. I was like, yeah, I was told that, you after like the first 15, 20 minutes is really when you begin to open up. And he's like, oh, have you not noticed I am in control of the show, or so whatever he said. And it was like, oh, I have let off my podcasting leash, man. You have no idea what we're about to get into.
That is a spot on, Matt.
That's so fucking good, man.
God, that is good.
I want you to ask, and he says to me, he goes, I want you to ask William Cooper about his salad days. And I said, his what? Salad days, man. I want to know what Coop's take is on his salad days. We're going to bring it up on the show tonight. And I said, I don't know what the hell that means, but okay. And I remember saying to Coop, I go, so Matt wants to talk about your salad days. And then he talked about the salad days being the beginnings or whatever. And then he got into this tangent about soup plantation. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pretend.
I knew both of these, and I'm lucky I knew both of these things too.
Yeah.
He didn't expect me to know both of them.
Like, I don't think John, I think John kind of knew what it was, but like, I was like, I'm not going to lie. He kept going on about soup plantation. And I'm like, is this code for something? Like, what the hell is soup plantation? And then Carney's like, is that kind of like Sweet Tomatoes? Like, it's like a soup place? And I'm like, oh, it's actually a soup place. I thought it was code for like some sort of like death plantation, like something bad. Because you never know with him. Who knows? And he just goes on and on about soup plantation. And then, oh, I was very like, I was not intrigued at going when I first went, but I went anyway. And he tells this whole story. And I'm like, I literally thought he was talking about something like that was not actually soup. And then it actually turned out it was a soup place. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. It just sounded weird to me. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I was so happy that quickly I learned. Yep. And then Coop's like, yeah, no, I know what it is. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because I felt like an idiot.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, Bear. I didn't mean to like derail the whole show with that.
Oh, it's all good. So before we go further, there's obviously a couple of, like I said, our fun segments we need to get through, and I told you guys about some other questions I wanted to ask. I also want to be respectful of everyone's time tonight too. I mean, how are we looking on time, guys? Because we are already a couple hours into the show, and I just want to make sure that we're all good here.
I'm good. I'm good on time.
I'm good. I'm yours. I'm yours.
I'm yours.
Yep.
I'm yours too. We're having a good time. I'm locked in right now, so I'm
Yeah.
We could just do the rest of the show in a Matt Booth impression. Please don't. Because I don't know if I could take it.
Like he's really here, really taking over the show and changing the whole format.
Exactly. Just like
Bear, this show belongs to me now.
Losing it. Coop, one of your most unique experiences.
Yeah, I'll take the celebrity interview piece out because they're unique, but they're different. But Bear, I'm gonna go back. This ain't that far along. There's two examples I have. So the first one goes way back to when Aaron and I interviewed Charlie and Jack Tarano. And what was significant about that is it was the first time we had someone who got out of the industry for a while and told a story about how he got out of the industry. It was kind of one of those moments that we just knew we were onto something special, but it was unusual because they're not talking about, then a lot of times, look, they're on there to kind of promote their brand or whatever. This was a very different story. This talked about, kind of the end of a brand. And, there was we learned after that show that there were Tarano employees who didn't even know the stuff that was said that night. And Charlie opened up for the first time on that. So, and he was already out of the industry for about 3 years at that point. No, more than that, about 4 or 5 years. So that was kind of a unique interview. It was different. But Bear, the other one was the show we did last month with Klaus Kellner and George Rico. So if folks haven't seen that, that special edition 97, Bear came up with a concept. Let's have some second generation cigar makers on. We'll have one from the Dominican Republic. That was Klaus Kellner. We'll have one from Honduras. It was George Rico. And we were going to have a third. It was Juan Martinez was supposed to be the third. Unfortunately, he had to be hospitalized, and he's okay and everything, but he couldn't make that. So we still did the show with George and Klaus. And these guys didn't know each other at all. I mean, and what was really interesting about that was seeing these guys getting to know each other, learning from each other. It was really magical that night, how it went. I didn't expect it to go as well as it did. And I'm just like, I think I messaged Bear a couple times. I said, we're on to something, man. This is something that hadn't been done before. And I think those guys, I like to say maybe they became friends after that show. It was a very positive experience. I mean, I've never been through an interview like that. It was just very, very unique that we did that. So not as fun as the Matt Booth stuff, but in their own rights, they were very important interviews, and they were unusual because they didn't fit the regular mold.
No, I agree, Coop. I think the interview that you did with Charlie and Jack Tarano, that's what that was episode 30, 39, something like that, maybe even sooner.
37.
Right?
37.
And that was, I mean, that was real. That was about as real as it had gotten at that point. I mean, talking about sunsetting of brands, letting people go.
Yep.
In some cases, their own family. I mean,
we asked a lot of questions. I mean, and there was a lot of opening up. Like Jack and Charlie's relationship got strained for a while with that, and they were very forthright. They patched it up, obviously, but there was some tough. Those were some tense moments with Charlie. And Charlie beforehand told us that there was no holds barred in that interview. I asked him, and I actually was in Florida for that interview. Aaron did it remotely, so I was in the room with these two guys that night. And the one thing that you can't get was being in the room that night. But we got so much feedback. That was the kind of the show I think that really, I just said, you know what, we're doing things different. We're coming up again. We're kind of being that line. But that, like I said, I wasn't prepared for what we were going to hear that night. I thought it was going to be some very canned answers. Now, nothing against Charlie or anything, but I kind of thought, all right, there's going to be some canned, and it wasn't. it was like raw that night, you know, and it was you know, it was very honest, and it was very, you know, it's just, like I said, it can't be recreated again. Like, we can always have Charlie back on again and be great guests, but we're not going to be able to recreate that night.
I would say I want to echo something. I mean, I've done enough shows now, and I know you guys definitely have. But I mean, I there's sometimes and this isn't just about like the Matt Booth episode. There's been plenty of other really good episodes, and sometimes a show comes along. Maybe you don't anticipate it being a big show. Maybe you don't. You kind of go into it just thinking, not that it's just another episode, but you're like, okay, like business as usual. But what ends up coming out of it, you know, is more magical, special, or
Yeah,
you know, whatever than you anticipated. And I think those are the best shows because you don't have so much. Your expectations are not maybe as high. You're not expecting it to be like the show of the year. And I think your mentality is you're more relaxed or whatever. And you go into it and you do the show and you just like, you know, maybe, you know what, screw it, we're gonna run over tonight because it's just so good. Like Bear was saying earlier, like I can't stop. I don't want to end it here. I gotta get a little more. And but then the show is over and you sit there, and I've done this several times where I just kind of sit there after, and you know, Nicole like wants to, you know, scramble and clean up or whatever. But like sometimes I just need a minute to just sit there and reflect and be like, shit, that was good. And not even like when Matt came on, it was just wild, but like everything happened the right way. Everything fired on all cylinders. The conversation was good. You touched on more than you planned on, and it was perceived well. And it's very organic. And then those are some of the best episodes. They really are. And it doesn't even have to be like a crazy, like high, well-known guest either. It's just like the show, just perfect, just the way it is. And even if you don't plan it that way, it's just, it's special.
Matt, I've always said this. If your show is big, you know, a lot of people love to see people get drunk on a show, right? Mm-hmm. If you're judging the success of a show on how trashed you got, your show's not performing to an extent, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I get it. There's certain, like when you get like a group of guys and stuff, it's a different story. But I'm saying kind of in the shows that we do, okay? Like I'm referring to getting drunk. I'm talking to the guest, okay?
No, yeah.
I'm not talking about like we all like to have a little fun as hosts and do that, right? So I'm not judging those types of shows. I'm saying like I, you know, I heard, I'm going to throw a name out there. I hear Juan Cancel got totally hammered on a show. Not to me, that's not good. Like that's not a good show. Like Juan Cancel getting drunk on that. And I love Juan Cancel. He's a great guest and everything, but to me, that's not giving me I'm not coming at it saying, wow, that was a great show, you know? So
that's not the barometer, is what you're saying.
It's not the barometer that I use. And again, I want to be careful not to judge other people, but to me, I'm not going to come out and say, I'm not going to sit there and say, wow, we had a great show. It's just not me. There's certain moment. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a big guest at all. I remember we had, you know, Ian from Dapper Cigars. I didn't know what to expect. That turned out to be a great show. Adrian Acosta from Cigar Culture, you know, he was kind of a fill-in at the last minute. I thought he was fantastic that night. Like, well, wow, this was a really good guest we had. Not necessarily the biggest names out there, but just like we came out like, this is some really good material we got out of this show.
Right.
And then Barry, even the Nick Perdomo show we just did last week, you know, when they were sharing the news about Nick's daughter, they brought the whole family on. I was like, I didn't expect, I loved it. Yeah. Nick's like, can I do this? I'm like, absolutely. And it was a great moment that we had there. That it just, you know,
that was a good show. That was a really good show.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, we've had a lot of those moments as well. So
I think it's,
yeah, right there.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's important to not not to have too much expectation going into it, or not to have too preconceived notions about stuff, because then that's when you lose. That's when you kind of give into the own bullshit. I've said a couple of times on the show, one of the interviews that I was most concerned about, and it wasn't a concern about the guest. I just didn't know how to take the conversation past some of just the basic nuts and bolts ABCs. And that was with George Ramy of Camacho Cigars.
Yep.
And we had a great conversation. In fact, he told stuff in that interview. He said, I've never even said this publicly. He's like, there's close friends that don't know this about me. And that, how could you not be moved?
Yeah.
By that kind of thing. And that's the stuff that you can't be sidetracked by, as much as we've been like kind of poking fun at Matt Booth tonight, but it's not even poking fun. It's just the reality of dealing with it. But in that chaos, he brings a lot of magic to an interview that you don't get from anyone else. Because, and again, as I was kind of saying earlier, it's because it's from a place of sincerity, which seems odd considering,
he's got a very good heart, Matt. I can tell you that.
100%.
That's the part that people who don't know Matt. And I've gotten emails from people saying Matt disrespected you, blah blah. No, you don't know Matt. You don't know Matt. Matt's got a good heart. There's a very sensitive side to Matt, a very caring side of Matt that maybe people don't realize sometimes.
Well, the amount of respect that he has for you, Coop, is evident in it's in the small things. It's not the talking you being Herculean and with your extremities. It's the subtle comments, or the always being willing to come on a show with you, or the way he greets you.
Cooper.
Yeah. And
he calls me Cooper.
Yeah, he does do that. You're right.
Cooper. Yeah.
And as incredibly popular as he is, Coop, and we've had this discussion in different contexts, but the last trade show that you and I went to, we had an appointment with him, and we went to his booth, and he kept getting derailed by outside folks and everything, but he kept coming back, and he's like, no, this is important. And he was blowing other people off and that wasn't for me. And Matt likes me.
Yeah.
But that was for you. And
Here was the thing though, and I want to make a clarifying point with that. I think you'll know the answer to what I'm about to say. These weren't people looking to put an order in. These were people interrupting him for photo ops or cigars. Okay, so that was that. And Matt, to his credit, derailed all that, which was good. A lot, and that's a big part you'll find when you do interviews at the trade show. People, we don't interrupt business, but in this case, they were interrupting our business. Retailers were interrupting our business, like to get a photo or a free cigar. Yeah, it was unbelievable. But Matt, to his credit, was very good to us on that, and he showed us a lot of respect that day. So yeah,
100%.
Because you remember with Saka when I remember Cigar Hustler Mike had to put that order in. We told Mike, look, put the order in. We remember that time
I apologized to him later because I thought I was being rude.
He was apologizing. No, like Mike, he was on a time schedule. We were like, no, this is cool. Don't worry about it. That was something we were okay with, and he wasn't a jerk about it. Mike, he was very nice about it. So, So I just, and Steve handled, and that was handled well too. Except for then the other guy comes over wanting free cigars and knocks my camera over. That was another story. But yeah.
Oh boy.
Yep.
So I want to take this opportunity to move into we've been having a lot of fun and continue this role as we kind of go into our more fun segments of the night. And these are two of our more popular segments that I love doing. They're always fun and they're always good. One's a little bit more serious, but this one, but still something I've really, really enjoyed about what the show has done. But we'll kick things off with our One Must Go segment, which is always, of course, brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. Smoke one today and start living united. So, gentlemen, I told you that I was really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to tonight's One Must Go. And I think it's going to be a fantastic exercise because it's going to set up a little bit more discussion than it normally does. Okay, so I got to thinking about what we could do tonight, and for some reason it just got in my head. Would you rather? And I think all of us have played that game. Would you rather do? And it's something probably it's pretty excruciating, right? There's some intangibles in it. So I've framed together 3 would you rather questions. So 3 would you rather questions. You have to kick one to the curb, but you have to answer the other 2. Are y'all game?
Okay.
All right, let's do this.
All right. All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So the first one is, would you rather the aliens that make first contact with Earth be robotic or organic life forms? Okay. The second one is, would you rather have one real get out of jail free card or a key that opens any door? And the third one is, would you rather have unlimited international first class tickets or never have to pay for food at a restaurant ever again? So which one gets kicked to the curb, and then you're going to answer the other 2. So I'm going to post these questions in the chat because I have a feeling that we'll have some really great discussion off of this. Okay. So these are, all right. So would you rather the first aliens that come in contact with Earth be organic or a robotic life form? Would you rather have one real free get out of jail free card or a key that opens any door? Or would you rather have unlimited international first class tickets or never have to pay for food at a restaurant ever again? So which one gets kicked to the curb?
I'm kicking the first one. Not because it's not a good one, but I like the other 2 better.
A little bit more thought provoking, perhaps.
Wait, you want me to do the whole thing?
I want Coop's answer first, and then we'll answer the questions because I have a feeling it might be similar. But maybe I'm jumping the gun here.
Cooper, you're being quiet over there.
Yeah, no, I got my answer here. It's the first one, but for a very different reason. There is no alien life form. It doesn't exist. We are the only life form in the universe. I will say that. I don't believe there's other life in it. And if it is, it isn't something that we can. It's tangible like human life. I've kind of believed that. So yeah, I don't believe they can create a robotic one, and I don't think there's an organic one. So that's why I'm kicking it to.
You don't think with the expansive universe that we have that there could be another life form out there? How could we really be the only ones in this?
Because it has to do with. I think it's the perfect storm why life can exist on Earth. So you need that other perfect storm, which is very difficult.
Well, yeah, but there could be a perfect storm out there that we just haven't been able to discover yet because of our capabilities and technology. You don't know.
They ever? Yeah, I'm just saying. I think it's like a 1 in. I think that perfect storm's like 1 in a million. That's why I just contend it ain't happening.
All right, let me ask you this question: do you think that we were a mistake?
No, I think it was. I think we evolved. I think it was just like I said, the perfect storm happened to hit on this planet.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I don't believe in UFOs or anything like that. So.
All right. So what do you think UFOs are? Just flying trash?
Yeah, they're satellites. They're things that are out there that they can always be explained off.
The truth is out there. If we learned anything from the X-Files, the truth is out there. Whether or not it's Coop's truth, we don't know. But...
I like being challenged on this. I'm gonna stick to my guns on this.
The truth is out there, Coop, whether you want to believe it or not.
I was, growing up, I was told there were green men on Mars, and Mars is cold to have green men.
So now that Coop has gone on record of saying this, now that he's gone on record of saying this, he'll be like one of those people someday that gets abducted by aliens. And then he'll be like, I believe it. I was wrong. They probed me in places that people warned me about.
Maybe there's microorganisms on some of these other places, but
there is on Mars. They discovered microorganisms. That's true, but
right.
Can you imagine the Matt Booth interviews that would proceed after Coop's abduction?
Well, yeah,
that would be riveting.
He would have so many questions. Be like, Cooper, where did they probe you? Did you like it?
Yeah, I get. Oh yeah.
You know, it would just be that would just that show.
Do they
alone.
even have a
Screw
notion
the
of
cigars.
speech?
Screw the
Yeah.
cigars. Don't even make it about cigars. You just come on the show and just talk to Matt about that. That's what I would.
Yeah.
That's what I would
Yeah.
want.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So I think, man, I think we've had more discussion on the ones we were kicking, but let's talk about these other two here. So Coop, would you rather have one free get out of jail card, a real one, absolutely 100% real, or a key that opens any door?
I'm gonna take the key that opens any door because I'm confident I'm not gonna get arrested.
What's the first door you'd open?
The key to any door?
Key to any door.
Well, it depends on the door. I mean,
It depends on the door. I was asking. Yeah.
Oh,
what
so
door
it's like
would you
it
open?
has to be it has
very
to be a
redundant
specific
answer.
place.
It's the open-ended question.
Carlito's Toy Factory.
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little let down by that. Not that it's not like a cool place, but out of all the places, that's where you. I mean, you probably don't need that to go there. You know what I mean? Like someday you can probably get in there. Really?
Well, what am I gonna say? A bank? I feel like I'm robbing the bank then. If I
well,
did
no,
that,
you
right?
can't. You can't rob the bank because you gave up your get out of free jail card. So
Right, that's true. Right, that's true. So I can't do that.
You need both for that. One.
Right, but what am I? Yeah, what am I gonna open? What door am I gonna open? Maybe But if I'm given the key to anything, right, then I can rob the bank, I guess. Because it's not robbing. I'm given the key.
I see what you did there. You turned it around where if I was given the key, then I won't go to jail. I'm allowed to go in there.
Yes. That's
I
okay.
guess-
In all these cases, you'd be robbing it. You'd be robbing. Like I can't think of another scenario where you have a key. Some buried. You want to say some buried treasure? Yeah, maybe. But
So I guess my answer would be the same as Coop's because I think I'd rather.
I
have
don't
the
need
key.
it.
I don't think I'll need the other one. But then I know Bear's gonna say, "Well, what door are you gonna open?" So my answer to that is kind of like I don't know either. And I'm trying to rack my brain to like, well, if I did have the key, what would I open with it? I don't know. I mean, what could I possibly want to get into that I would never otherwise be able to get into? That's a toughie. I don't know. I'm blanking on this one right now, guys. Just giving you dead air on live.
How about this? I mean, this is a subject that comes up on Matt Ty's show all the time. With his question, if you could listen to the thoughts of any living person, who would you choose? And a lot of people avoid saying their spouses, but would you unlock the door to the key of Mrs. Cooper or Nicole? Find out what they're really thinking.
Oh yeah. And I know that I was hoping maybe she fell asleep. No, she's still awake because there she is commenting. So, yeah, I mean, well, obviously, yeah.
I'd like to know what my wife's thinking sometimes.
Only because sometimes, I feel like she knows I'm right about things, but she sticks to her guns anyway and creates the argument or keeps the argument going, even when I've presented a O.J. Simpson trial-like argument of why I know that I'm right.
Bad metaphor, man. OJ got off at least the first time.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, he did. But I feel like I should have, but I still don't. And it's like because I feel like she knows that I'm right. Like my defense has rested, and she still doesn't give me the win. And I'd like to at least just know, like, yeah, like that I was right. You won't give it to me, but at least I know you know. And that's just enough for me. So
sounds like Nicole and I are gonna be friends because I do the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, when you put it that way, 100%. I guess that's a good analogy. Coop, I'm sorry. Did you answer on that one? What was your answer to that?
Mine was the door.
The bank.
You're sticking
he's avoiding understanding Mrs. Cooper.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually the sound clicked out for a minute, but I don't think I mean I'm married. I'm gonna be married 31 years. If I don't know her by now,
fair
That's a
enough.
safe answer.
yeah,
That's
honestly, if I don't
That's
know her by
31
now,
years of beautiful marriage talking right there.
yeah, exactly, and that's on Thursdays. Thursday's actually our anniversary, so yeah, 31 years. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Congrats, Coop.
yeah.
Really congrats.
Thank
Congrats,
you.
buddy.
Yeah, you guys are mere babes here.
Yeah, Bear and I have a long way to go.
Yep.
All right. So, would you rather have unlimited international first class tickets or never have to pay for food at a restaurant again?
You know, that's a really good one. I would say I'm going to take the food. The reason is because as much as there's international travel that I do want to take in my lifetime, there's only like so many places I want to go. And the places that I'll probably go once in my life internationally. And I'm okay with that. It's not like I travel internationally all the time and I want to go first class. But I like to eat and I like to go out to eat. And it's like a very regular occurrence for me. And, you know, especially like, yeah, being able to go out and eat for free all the time. Yeah, that's a win. That's a win. And then when you travel internationally, you make up for that flight by being able to go to nice restaurants every night and live like a king. I don't know. That's my mentality.
Coop?
All right. I'm going the opposite. I'm taking the international. The international.
You know, I'm
tickets.
not surprised. And before Coop answers, I feel like it's because he's one of those like finicky travelers, so he needs to have first class all the time. He needs to have the early boarding, and he needs to have the meal on the
You got
plane
me.
and the extra pillow. And
Yeah.
he's one of those guys who like if he could take JetBlue Mint flights or like the Emirates flights with like the beds and stuff like for free, he would travel. He would go out of his way to travel even to places he wouldn't even care about going just because like he'd get to like travel like a king. And because I don't know, I feel like he's difficult to travel with, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I feel
Oh no,
like he probably
I
has a
can tell
lot
you.
of. He probably has. He's probably just real. I just picture Coop like in an airport and on an airplane, being just like not like a pain in the ass, but just like he just has so many specific things that he needs to be comfortable, and I feel like him and Coach is just like, oh, I can just see him just all out of place. I don't know. That's just me. He just strikes me as a
He's
very
not wrong.
finicky
He's
traveler.
not wrong. He's not wrong.
What do you mean you
Okay.
don't serve alcohol on this flight? I have to pay $3 for ice. What?
Yeah, right.
Do you know who I am? I'm William Cooper.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that one.
I'm still never now going to be able to ever see Coop when he puts his hand behind his head ever the same way ever again.
Yeah, he ruined
That was right. I remember that moment. Like, yeah. All right, let's break this down here. My wife's an amazing cook. Okay. And I don't like eating in restaurants because I have no patience to sit through a long meal. Right. So I want to be in and out quickly. Right. So based on that, I said, you know what, I'll pass on the restaurant. Now, international travel. I'm getting older. There is a list of places I'd really like to go before I'm gone, right? But think about the other thing for a second. I'm a cigar person. I go to Nicaragua whenever I want. I go to Dominican whenever I want. Honduras whenever I want.
There you go.
Very true. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Now you guys have not been to. You've been to the Dominican, Matt. You haven't done the cigar trips, right? When you do the cigar trips, when you do them, you're gonna love these. You're gonna fall in love with these countries. And I've fallen in love with each of these three countries I've mentioned. I went to Cuba and I went to Costa Rica as well. So and I fell in love with those. It's funny. Anywhere I go, I fall in love with the place and I like want to live there or something. It's kind of fun. But Nicaragua, there's just something about Nicaragua that really kind of, it's hard to explain, but of all those places, and I love the Dominican and I love Honduras, but But Nicaragua, I don't know. It's just there's something magical about that place. And you go back and I've watched Esteli grow in the last 10 years on various trips, which is interesting. I mean, I was just there last year, and I changed my whole Nicaraguan travel. Now I'm going to stay at this hotel, the hotel that Nick Perdomo has people meet at. You go there the night before. I'm going to do that on every trip right now. I decided, right? Because I just enjoyed it so much. So, I think it would be pretty. I did international travel for my day job for a short time before I had to change out of that for basically because it was just too rough on me. But if I could do it on my own leisure, I'd be happier with that.
He does bring up a good point in terms of cigar travel. I mean, I was with Nick Perdomo when we were in Miami, and we were at the Perdomo offices, and it was actually interesting because he was talking with Nelson Kuehler about it, and they were talking about trying to get a flight down to Nicaragua, and like the ticket for Avianca was like $1,500. I can't remember if it was round trip or if that was just like one way, and he was just all bent out of shape. I was like, "Are you serious?" Like,
and that's like strapped to the wing. That's not first class either.
Yeah, he's like to paint you a perspective. He's like, if you've ever flown on Spirit, on that horror show, it's 10 times worse than that. He's like, you don't even get the peanuts in the water on this flight. All right. He's like, it sucks, and you're paying $1,500. So yeah, I mean that is pretty difficult. I guess.
Yeah, Coop and I were discussing travel for the upcoming PCA trade show, and I was like, "I'm
not going Spirit.
I'm sorry, man. I can't do it again. I can't do it.
He's like, please." I said, "Okay, we want you to be comfortable."
You know, it was funny. It was funny. I was with Barry Stein yesterday, and we were talking about this exact thing. And I remember I was like asking the guys. I was like, "Yeah, and I've never flown Spirit, so I've heard so many times about how bad it is." And I remember asking Dave, and I think Dave said he hadn't done it. And then Barry's like, alongside, he's like, "Yeah, I've done it." He's like, "It wasn't the worst flight, but like it wasn't great." He's like, "It's what you'd expect, I guess." And he's like, "Well, it's not so much the flight." He's like, "It's the people that are on there with you that is really what turns it off." He's like, "The people that are on that flight are putting trash bags for luggage in the overhead bin." He's like, "It's just a sight to see." He's like, "I won't do it again," and I'm like, "I'm not even gonna waste my time. I don't think I'll ever try it unless like I'm desperate and like I just need to get home. While I fly Spirit. I've heard too many stories, you know. I don't know.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible.
What was it for you? So what was it for you that was so bad about Spirit?
The fact that I paid. Well, I mean, this just to start off. I mean, the fact that I paid because you have to pay for everything on Spirit.
Yeah.
I paid for a carry-on. I paid for my carry-on baggage. When I bought the ticket, and when I checked in, they said I hadn't bought it, and so I bought it again when I checked in online on the app, for an increased price. So I was pretty furious at that. And they're like, "No, we have no record of your purchase." I'm like, "I do. It's a receipt. It's called the receipt that I have here. It says plus 2 carry-on bags." Like, what are you talking about? And they said, "Sorry, you don't have it." And so I had to pay. So on the app, I paid for it again. I get to the airport. I'm like, "Okay, where are my baggage tickets for them?" And they're like, "Oh, you don't have it." I was like, "I paid here's another receipt. I have 2 receipts that show that I paid for baggage
Twice.
One was at a lower cost, one was at a higher cost, and they're like, "No, you have to pay for it again." And I paid for it again a third time at a much higher price. I paid once for $30 a bag to carry on.
Mm-hmm.
When I checked in online the night before, I paid $50 a bag, so $160. And then when I got to the airport where they said I didn't have it, it went up to $90 a bag.
That's ridiculous. That actually happened to me on the way back from Florida because I had checked my bag because I had a check bag and I did the check-in at the kiosk, and I put it in that I had a bag. Now I fly JetBlue and I have the JetBlue credit card, so my first checked bag is always free. So I'm like, all right, and I did the thing, and I didn't have to pay, and I printed it out. Then I get the thing, and the guy's like, "Yeah, it's too heavy." I'm like, "Oh, Christ!" And I'm like, "Well, there's nowhere to put anything." He's like, "You can do the." I go, "No." I go, "Guy, all my luggage is packed." I mean, I came home with like 2 suitcases full of cigars, and there's no way. There's no way. I'll pay the fee or whatever. So I go to the thing, And in the system, it said, well, you already have a checked bag, so this has to be a second bag. And I go, well, that's not right because it's still only the one bag. So I think the normal fee for a heavy bag is like $150 or something like that. But because it wanted me to check a second bag, technically, and I was overweight, it was like over $200. And I'm like, well, that's not right. So then the guy was like, well, you can go wait in that line over there, but it's got about an hour wait time. And I'm like, I got to be on the plane in like 35 minutes. Mind you, we were already behind schedule because at MCO, there's no signs telling you where to return the rental car until you're like all the way into the terminal. And we had to go around 3 times.
But it's right there. It's tricky, but it's right there. Yeah.
And like we didn't, and I'm like Nicole and me are going around. So I'm like, where the hell are we going? Like, and we lost so much time. And so I'm like, we're already behind. I don't have time. So I'm like, I guess I just have to pay it. And I overpaid for that, which was disappointing because JetBlue's always, been good to me. So not as bad as Bear's situation though. But I mean, I guess I kind of relate.
Oh, that was just for starters. Yeah, no.
But yeah, continue. What else went wrong?
Wait,
we don't have enough time, gents.
Oh, we don't have enough time. Must have been that bad.
All right, I gotta ask Matt a question here. JetBlue, right? Because I used to fly JetBlue a lot going to New York from Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
So, do they still have? And I want the blue chips, the blue potato chips.
I don't know. And I'll be honest with you, because I don't usually get any of the snacks on the plane. I usually just bring my own stuff. But I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay. So for years, you got the bag of Terra Blue potato chips, right? And I've always liked those, right? It's always a kind of a little treat to have on them. They're really good. But the last couple of times, all of a sudden, they start mixing sweet potato chips in with these blue chips. And I actually complained about it to someone in customer service.
I knew it.
Right? I actually went. I said,
he's difficult to travel with.
But the funny thing is, they said to me, "You are not the first." And I was nice to them. I wasn't. They said, "You are not the first person to complain about these sweet." I said, "Yeah, you're putting all sweet potato chips in there, and you're getting a lot less of the blue chips." I said, "I want blue chips." Yeah.
Cooper, so you're the guy that complains about the free chips on the flight.
I went actually to a customer service desk, right?
Oh,
I had some, and I just asked the question, and I was nice about it. I didn't say. I just said, "Look, I really like those. I don't want sweet." Like I said, part of the JetBlue experience to me, I always look forward to those blue chips, and I get these blue and sweet potato chips, and it was like 1/3 blue chips. I'm like, I don't want sweet potato chips. I'm like, I want blue chips.
I could just imagine him being like, "Listen, I only flew on here for the blue chips."
Yeah, Orlando's agreeing with me. They're the bomb. These things are awesome. I mean, it's part of the. And look, I've had great experience with JetBlue, so they're very good with their customer service. I mean, I would even go back, Matt, and go back. They have done nice things in customer service in the past. Someone once was very rude to me. And I filed a complaint, and I got several phone calls apologizing and everything. So, and I wasn't looking for a free trip or anything like that. I just said, look, I just don't like being treated like that. I understand someone has a bad day, but that's no excuse. So,
yeah. Nicole chimed in. She's like, you with the
granola bars. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will attest to that. So I'm not that difficult to travel with. When I go to the airport, listen, I've traveled enough times. I know the routine, get in, get out. I'm not difficult. I just know what has to be done, and I like to do it, be done, so I can relax, so I can enjoy my travel time as stress-free as possible. Having said that, I will, I do travel to Vegas frequently. So when I do that long flight from Boston, which is about 6.5 hours on a good day, yeah, I'd like the even more space seats because I'm 6'1" and I don't want to cram in for 6.5 hours on the airplane. So I like to get the extra space. But other than that, I'm low maintenance. I'm not like asking for the world. I'm not asking for all blue chips.
Like
now,
somebody.
Now,
How
now,
dare
Matt,
you give me sweet potato chips?
Now, Matt, my father, okay, and there's a show that we actually did with Alec and Bradley Rubin on primetime.
Yeah.
Is the guy you worry about basically getting arrested on the plane. Okay. And I was telling a lot of those stories about how he caused problems on the plane. You do not want to travel with my father. I mean, he is tough. He just, holy cow.
Is he the guy that says bomb on an airplane?
Not quite, but he will be the one. He will be the one when the kid is crying, or stuff like that. He is not, but he also gave his seat up once to Patrick Ewing. So so he has
It's cool.
yeah, but he gave up the front seat in first class for Patrick Ewing because he needed the room, and he told me Patrick Ewing couldn't have been nicer about it because Patrick needed that space for his legs. And I remember he was telling me the story when the flight attendant went up to him, like, someone really needs your seat. He's like, who the fuck wants my seat? And she goes, well, that gentleman. And he's like, Patrick Ewing. And he's like, of course, yeah. So he still had a first class seat, but he had to go a couple of rows back. So
That's funny.
So I travel with 2 small kids. Never get on a flight with Coop's dad. Noted.
Noted. Do not. Well,
when we flew down to Miami a few weeks ago, we're at Logan, and me and Nicole we're already through security, and we're walking through, and there's this guy, loud guy. You can hear him all over the airport. He was at the Wahlburgers restaurant in the terminal, and you could hear him yelling and whatever. And we said something to each other like, "Oh God, that guy's obnoxious." He was your typical like Southie, like Bostonian guy, the stereotypical, like the heavy accent, the loud, your cousin from Boston. For those of you who've seen that commercial outside of New England, we don't all actually act or sound like that, but and I'm like, oh, God, that's obnoxious. Anyway, we keep going. And then we get on the plane and we're sitting down, and all of a sudden we hear that guy, and Nicole just goes, oh, that guy's on our flight. And he comes walking down the aisle, and he's like, yeah, Miami, let's go. And I'm like, oh, geez. And then the flight attendant just goes up to one of them, just like, you might want to go back there and check on that. This is a long flight, and I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want there to be any problems. And then the other one like runs down there, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, there's already troubles. We haven't even left the gate yet.
So, Matt, here's what you got to next time you go to Florida. I realize you may not have been working out this time. Fly into Orlando and fly out of Miami. And the reason why I say that is because you could smoke in the Miami airport at the smoking lounge.
That's actually, I had heard about that and I forgot about it. And honestly, after our trip down there, I probably Miami was cool. I think next time I'd probably go just for like Tampa and Orlando. But as I said to Nicole, eventually we'll be back in Miami for something. So
there's a lot of companies you can hit down there. Yeah,
I will take that advice.
There's a lot of companies you can hit in Miami as well. Yeah. So I mean, every time I go, people want to see me, and I only can get to about 4 or 5. So you'll find that and all these companies are really welcoming to you in the offices.
Yeah, I mean, we I think we had like 3 or 4 of them. We went to LFD, Nick Perdomo, we went to Perdomo, Terrence Riley at Agrinos Leaf. Yeah, and there is a lot, and it's especially when we were only there for a couple of days. It's tough,
It is very hard. Yeah,
and you want to, and it's cool, but like you can only do so much time.
Yeah. I stay over at Miami Lakes, which is right by Perdomo, which makes it really easy.
Closer to Doral.
So it's close to Doral. Yeah. It's further from the beach though. I didn't get to go on the Nick Perdomo beach. That's you made out with that one. That was awesome. Yeah. Like, you sent me, I'm here on the beach where Nick Perdomo's place. Like, you.
Wow, it was awesome. Well, I had messaged Nick about coming up to the office or whatever, and he, he's such a gracious guy, and he's like, if you need any like tips or anything, like let me know, like beaches, restaurants, whatever. And I was like, all right, yeah. I'm like, where's a good spot to go to the beach, like. Because I'm like, well, we'll do a Miami Beach day, so we can say we did Miami Beach. So I'm like, yeah, like where would you go, Miami Beach or whatever. And then he was like, you know what? He's like, you can use my beach. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, thanks. And he's like, yeah, it's private, it's all set. You just bring the stuff you need. We'll have it all set up. I'm like, okay, sure,
good.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That was cool. I wasn't expecting. I was very kind. I was like, okay, sure. And then we got there, and his son-in-law Andrew was there, and he brought us down, and it was really nice, and it was beautiful, and we had a great day. Like an hour in, I hear Nick's voice coming from behind me, and I turn around, and there he is, Baywatch style, running through the sand, nothing but his swim trunks with his gun show out and his South Florida tan. looking like a man of $1 million. And that was cool. Because you always go to the events and you see Nick in the suit and he looks great, fantastic. But to see him in such a casual setting, I mean, that was cool in itself too.
Yeah,
awesome.
that was really cool.
Just Nick working on the power tan.
Yep.
Well, that was an awesome one must go segment, gentlemen. I have to applaud y'all. That was everything I wanted it to be and more. So appreciate y'all participating in the one must go. So always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. Smoke one today. Start living united. So, gentlemen, this has quickly become my favorite segment of the show. It's something that I've done since my birthday late last year. Coop was on the very first show where we launched this segment, and since then it's become really just really terrific. And that, of course, is our charity segment where I ask each of my guests that appear on my show to select a charity or nonprofit of their choice that they want to spotlight or highlight and bring awareness to and perhaps raise some money for. So got two incredible organizations tonight. I'll do a quick intro and then I want to just give you guys the spotlight and let you all talk about it a little bit and why it's important to you and everything. So Coop, we'll start with you. We had the opportunity to spotlight this charity the last time you were on, and that, of course, was Sepsis Alliance. And we raised quite a bit of money for this organization that night, and we actually carried it over to the next Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition. And we were able to raise even more money. This is a cause that doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not the it's kind of hard to think of disease and healthcare issues as sexy or attentive, but there are a lot more popular charities out there when you think about healthcare. There's the the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Association, Susan G. Komen breast cancer foundation, and so on, right? But you chose Sepsis Alliance, and it was a very personal choice. And I'm not sitting to go ahead and rehash why you chose it necessarily, but just to kind of carry on why you decided to continue with spotlighting it tonight, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. So and we went through, I know a lot of it the last time, but for folks who may not have heard it, sepsis is a condition in the body where the body gets infected, and typically that is a blood infection that happens. And when you have an infection in the body's reaction is to try to fight the infection. Now, a blood infection is very serious because it circulates throughout the body. And what happens is there's a point where if that thing starts spreading in the body short circuits. The body goes through a short circuit and starts shutting down functions. And that's what sepsis arises. Now, the other thing about sepsis is it is this is not and I suffered a blood infection, by the way, and it changed my life forever, basically, because when you have something and you go through something like this, it's life changing. You don't go through anything like that again. It's a deadly condition that happens, and it can happen to anybody. You can get it from a strep throat. You can get it from your toothbrush if there's bacteria. You can get it from a finger cut. It's a common thing with surgery. And a lot of times when you hear of surgery and people die of complications from surgery, those complications are usually sepsis. So that's really what sepsis is. Now, Sepsis Alliance is not looking for a cure for sepsis. They're not, because sepsis is curable through antibiotics. And but the thing is that the antibiotics are they're brutal, but there is a cure. So they're not looking for a cure here. This is a little different than a lot of other diseases. But what they are trying to do is they're trying to educate and promote awareness about sepsis. And I can tell you that I ignored the signs. I probably wouldn't have ended up in a hospital if I didn't ignore the signs, or maybe I wouldn't have gone through it as bad as I did. So what the Sepsis Alliance does is they have a great website. They're committed to working and working to help people have this type of awareness, and they raise money to do that. They have certain fundraising opportunities throughout the year. I opted to stick with this because simply that I went through this, and it's a long-term commitment I'm making for this right now. And like I said, it can happen to anybody, but the key thing is if you want to survive it, you got to know the signs. And the sepsis.org, which is the Sepsis Alliance, they do a fantastic job with this. So if you feel inclined to donate tonight, donate. If you don't feel inclined to donate, then I say just go to sepsis.org and review some of the materials. Maybe pay it a visit a few times a year. They update it a lot, and just learn that awareness. I don't want anyone to go through what I maybe went through on things like this. And like I said, it almost led to a heart infection with me. I was told I was very lucky that it didn't die. So, that's it.
Coop, as we talked about before, the thing about sepsis is that it, like you said, if you ignore the signs, that's where it always becomes much more, I mean, much more dire for folks. And
Yeah.
And a lot of times, when we hear about, like you mentioned before, like when you hear about, complications, dying of complications, it usually 100% of the time involves, sepsis. And, the term septic shock gets thrown around a lot without people truly understanding what it is. And this is what Sepsis Alliance does, is it brings a lot of awareness to it. So, I mean, I think it's like you said, if you don't feel inclined to donate, that's fine, but check out their website. I put it in the chat.
At a minimum.
And learn more about it. I think it's definitely worth your time. So thank you for again bringing it up to our attention.
No, you're very welcome on that. Like I said, and here's the other thing: don't do a podcast the night before when you're like that was. I probably wouldn't have done a podcast that night if I was paying attention to the symptoms. So, but yeah.
Says the guy who wanted to also do a show from the hospital bed, by the way.
Yeah, that was stupidity, though. So I did have my laptop in the hospital and I was writing content.
Oh, I'm sure you were.
The first night I wasn't. The first night was brutal. So yeah.
Hashtag Cooper's a trooper.
Yeah.
So Matt, to turn attention to you now, you recently have done an incredible job of bringing awareness to your charity of choice tonight. I'll let you talk about it a little bit more, but the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, which was started by the Fuente and Newman families, has done an amazing amount of work in the Dominican Republic. And this is something that you and Nicole really kind of latched onto and really took to the next level in recent events. So I'll let you talk a little bit about the organization, why it's important to you, and of course, most recently, what you guys were able to do for an incredible and deserving organization.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation was started by the Fuente and Newman families. It was it's a charity that helps kids in the Dominican Republic receive a better education and better opportunities. And it started small, and it's grown into just so much. They've given so much to those kids to give them the best opportunities. I know that they've had some kids go on to be doctors and lawyers and all sorts of great opportunities. And a lot of them have, who've gone through the program have come back and, given back or have, or teach or contribute or otherwise, just be a part of it somehow because, it was so rewarding to them. And I'm trying to remember we were with Cynthia Fuente actually last week in Tampa, and we gave her the check for the fundraiser that we had just run, which I'm really happy to say we raised $7,000 for.
Well done.
And just really proud to be a part of that. And it was an honor to be a part of it. And we're just so happy that we were able to just do something. And I know that money goes a long way for those kids, and every dollar helps, and that was certainly a nice amount for them. And Cynthia was telling us a little bit about that the way that came to be of Carlito being down there and and seeing those kids and wanting to do something for them, and starting with what became CFCF. And we had Angela Yu on the show, who a lot of you guys might have seen or heard on social media. She has the Grand Cathedral, which just opened, but in San Diego. She also has Lord Puffer cigar. So she's pretty well known, and she came on our show. We were talking with her, and the plan was always to do some sort of fundraiser. I always promised myself that if I was able to grow an audience or a platform large enough that I could use that power to connect with people, get people together, I always wanted to do a charity. I didn't have any specific one in mind, but I always knew I would do something. And so we talked about doing our 1-year anniversary show a few weeks ago. And, months ago, we were like, well, what are we going to do for the anniversary? And we had all these ideas for the show. But I said, that's all fine and dandy. And I want to do all of that. But I want to do something else, too. I want to do something different. I want to do something that also it puts a spotlight on something else, too. That's part of that celebration. We can use this celebration to amp something else up. And I want to do a charity. And I said, I want to go run and doing a fundraiser. And I had the idea for Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, and we had Angela come on the show, and she was talking about it. And, we were like, yeah. And she told us her experience of going down there and seeing those kids. And we were like, yeah, this is what we want to do. And we started to put together some ideas, and it ended up being we kind of changed it halfway through, but I think it was for the better. We ended up making it more into like a raffle situation. So we sold raffle tickets, and there was a lot of manufacturers who donated cigars and swag and stuff like that for us to raffle off to help raise money. Cynthia and Carlito themselves gave us some stuff from their personal collections. A lot of you guys probably saw that if you were part of that. There was some really rare stuff, really cool stuff that I know a lot of people, wish they could get their hands on. And we raffled them all off, and we were happy, and we raised $7,000. It was an experience, and it's something that we want to continue to do again. And, take what we learned from our first go to make it better next time, and raise even more money and make it even bigger of a deal. So I think that's what we're going to try to do again next year. We'll make it kind of an annual thing. And it's just special, anytime kids are involved, it's always special. I mean, and there's a lot of great charities out there. There's a lot of good stuff, like St. Jude's Children's Hospital. That's a really good one. So for me, I've always had a soft spot for kids and in helping kids. So that was kind of another like real passion driver for me, was what helps kids, who are underprivileged, have the opportunity to have a better life. So we're just really, really honored to just be a part of it, and it's a charity that, it's definitely something to look into. And, every dollar counts. So any amount that you donate it's really special. Yep.
I just have to reiterate and commend Matt, what you and Nicole and John were able to do with this. What
a job. Yes.
I mean, I'm pleased with this little project that I've built into my show. We're able to raise hundreds of dollars here and there. But $7,000 for a deserving organization. I mean, that's in no shorter. And everyone, like you said, it wasn't just the Fuentes. You got a lot of other manufacturers involved in this, and it was, it was incredible. And 100% of the proceeds, like you said, all went to the charity, which is, that's the problem with charities and nonprofits, is that a lot of times the money isn't going to help the people that it's intended to help. And that, we couldn't describe two organizations further from that point than Sepsis Alliance and the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. And so, and that's why I'm sporting one of my new shirts tonight.
Yep.
That I got from Smokin Tabacco. Really, really great design, highlighting some.
I have the Vitola one. Yeah,
I have the Vitola one too. Yeah, highlighting some of the most popular wrappers in the industry: Connecticut, Corojo, Habano, Maduro, and Oscuro. And it was really great to get something really cool out of it, but knowing that all the money that I used to purchase the shirt went to a great and deserving
Absolutely.
Yep.
charity. So, now you guys designed these, right, Matt?
Yeah, actually, yeah, Nicole did. And she created all the designs for all the stuff that's on our web store. And sorry, I'm trying to figure out. I wanted to try to do something if I could. The all the designs were done by her. She put the whole store together, which was no small task in itself.
No.
And there's a whole bunch of cool stuff on there. You know, there's apparel, there's hats, and there's like phone cases and mugs. She has her own kind of like the Smokin Tobacco stuff is you know our branded stuff, but she kind of created her own little subline called Smokin Babe, which is a more female friendly collection too. And so I know we had a lot of females who ordered stuff through there as well. And so you know it was cool to see, you know, like people ordering our swag and posting it and wearing it online, and that's always cool. But the bigger part of it too was, you know, like you said, it was why it was done. It was why those things were ordered. It was because it was for the benefit of such a good organization. So you know, the amount of support that we received from that was tremendous. What happened here? Oh,
I'm sharing the store.
Oh,
where you can go.
I was gonna share. I was looking for the photo. I was gonna share a photo too. I was just trying to get it on my full screen. There we go. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff on there. I mean, obviously the fundraiser is over now, and we will do it again. But there is cool stuff, and people, you should check it out. And you know, if there's anything cool you want, you should order it. It's fun stuff. But yeah, just again, we were really so overwhelmed and just overjoyed with the response that people came out to, you know, to donate money. I mean, that was huge. I'm trying to pull up a photo because I think it's a really awesome photo that we had. So John Carney ordered while we were already in Florida. He went on his laptop in his hotel room when we were in Boynton Beach on Tuesday, and he designed a jumbo check.
I was wondering how that was. Yeah.
Carney did it on his laptop from his hotel room after we got back from dinner with Abe that Tuesday, and he had it made from somebody in Connecticut and had it overnighted to his house in Orlando. And so it got to his house in Orlando, and he was like, "Oh, I did this thing. We're going to give it to Cynthia." Because I had a real check. I gave her an actual check with the money. But then he's like, "I have a jumbo check. I designed it. It's coming. Like, it's the real deal. Like the Publishers Clearinghouse. Like I got one. It's coming." And he was like all excited about it. And I was like, all right, I hadn't seen it. But then it came to his house, and we went to his house. He pulled it out of the box, and I was like, that's like the real thing, like you see on TV. I'm like, that's really cool. It was just, it made it more fun. And I have a photo of all of us with it. And I'm trying to pull that up. And I have it right here. And I have to remember how to share screen.
Share screen at the bottom.
Or actually, you know what, Bear? If it's easier, I can maybe send it to you. I will do it that way. That way I don't have to mess this up, because it was really cool. And it's just worth sharing if I can. Sorry, I'm not trying to like delay this all out. There we go.
No. While you're figuring that out there, Matt, I will say, like, has become tradition on this particular segment, my wife and I have been together and pledged that every charity that is brought up on these shows during this year, we are able to we're going to be able to donate to each charity in both y'all's honors tonight. So the Cigar Charitable Foundation, Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, and Sepsis Alliance will both receive donations in y'all's honor from me and my wife tonight, and I'm pleased to do it. This is exciting stuff. So you did send me that picture. Let me see if I can get it pulled up here. So give me 1 second, and we'll get that done. And while I'm doing that, go ahead 1 second here.
I'll mention something. I was going to mention
please.
something that, you know, the cigar industry, you know, a lot of times we critique it and stuff like that. There's no more giving industry. And when I say industry, I'm going everywhere from manufacturers, retailers, reps, consumers. they are so giving when the cards are on the table and something needs to be done. I mean, there's no other industry that I see come like this, and it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing to see. That's great.
And that was special. I mean, it was, again, that charity is a special charity for us because we were able to to pull that off. And it was also special just to be able to present that to them too. I mean, that was a very emotional thing for me too. I remember just when I looked at John, like, all right, it's time, let's do it, because we had surprised her with the check or whatever. And and John's like, hey, so Cynthia Matthew has something he wants to give you. And I went over to her, and I pulled the check out of my pocket, and I was like, on behalf of us to, Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, I want to present you this check for $7,000. And it was emotional for me, and I could see just the happiness that she had, and it was just a special moment, because it is such a big deal, and it's such a huge help, um, for them. And it changes lives, and it's just so special. um I remember watching The Great Smoke, and that Abe did, back in February, and on Carlito's segment. I know everyone at the time was probably going crazy just trying to buy the Opus cigars, but I was watching, and I remember Abe asked him about Liana and just all the work she's done, for them too. And he got emotional. He started to cry on the show, and I thought that was just so moving, because it was just like the pride that they have, and what they do. Um, it is special, you know. And they're a family organization, like most in the cigar industry, and it's really special stuff. It really is.
No, agreed. It's absolutely wonderful that
Yep.
that you were able to do that. I mean, like you said, what a moment for you personally, but the amount you guys were able to raise, and what you guys were able to do for those children. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, just I was there's no other way to say it, man. I was in awe of the two of you. I just very pleasantly in awe, and it was a beautiful thing to see the industry come together around these two, like we've been talking about tonight, relatively newcomers to this industry in the aspect that you all are, which is cigar media, and to rally around such a truly deserving cause. I mean, it just, damn, just beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
So, so thank you.
yeah, I mean, I appreciate the kind words, and and I gotta give Nicole a lot of credit too. She did a lot of work on this too. All those raffle tickets that people bought, she emailed those out like one at a time, manually. That's one thing we want to look into next time, making it a little bit more easier, but something a little more automated. But it was, and then the anniversary show, Nicole hopped off after the pretty much the primary portion of it, because we were leaving for Miami the next day, and it was like we have to like pack all these up and get them out, which we didn't do ahead of time because we wanted to showcase stuff and all that, and we knew it would be a lot of work. But and then I eventually jumped off, and there was probably, I want to say there was like 40 something packages that she packed, labeled that night till like 2 in the morning, and sent them out. I mean, just the amount of work that went into it, it was a lot, but it was rewarding. So, and I want to share that with her, because she did so much work. And I want to thank everybody else too. Again, just while we're here, I want to thank everyone else who just donated stuff. I mean, Drew Estate donated stuff. Cuevas Cigars, Nova Cigar, McAuliffe, La Flor Dominicana. Um, Drew Newman gave us some Brickhouse stuff. Cynthia and Carlito, they didn't have, we did this for those two. We did this for them, and we didn't ask them for anything, and they wanted to give us stuff to do this. Um, the folks at Ash Quarterly, Smoking Cat gave us a cigar rest. If I'm forgetting anyone right now, I'm sorry. There was just so much. We give stuff out of our personal collection. You know, we have a massive cigar collection. We pull stuff out of there, and we shared it. So yeah, I mean, thank you. I mean, just that's all I got really. It was successful, and we're just proud of that.
As you should be. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, gentlemen, again, can't thank you enough for all of your time tonight. I've got one last question for Coop, because I promised that we would bookend the show, taking a question that you answered earlier, Matt, and then putting it on Coop. And then we've got our curveball segment, which will conclude our show. So I always take this time to thank my guests. I know that we went way long tonight, and Matt, I do apologize. We talked about how long the show would take, and I apologize that we went over that time.
Okay, it was good.
Means so much to me for you gentlemen to hop on, and in such short notice too. With our unfortunate reschedule that we had to take place with our originally scheduled guests, but you guys agreed to be on the show for this concept, and it's been fantastic talking to both y'all. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and
Same here.
yeah, I mean, like I said, you called me, you need a hand. If a fellow member of the media. I'm here for you, man. I love the stuff you guys are doing. So, yeah, it was a no-brainer. I jumped right in, no problem. Whatever you need.
Really, really, really appreciate it, man. Coop.
Yeah.
Question to you. So, your tenure's been a lot longer. 10 plus years in this role in the industry. What have you taken from new media that you've learned?
The one thing, and I know, Bear, you say I'm not weak at this, right? But I am in a certain sense. The one thing that I think that I've tried to do better is, and I haven't gotten there yet, is the sense of community that I've seen with new media. And obviously, Matt, what you and Matt are doing with fundraising is one thing, but I'm even kind of going a little more dialing it back a little, and that's kind of when we were at Stogie Geeks, we did not do a good job at interacting with our audience at all, and I still don't do a great job at it, right? But I've tried to get a lot better with that through social media and things like that. But people like Matt, you have a great way of fostering in the community to be a part of the brand, and I think that's a real strength that a lot of the newer folks who've come up. I'll take Dojo and Cigar Federation aside, but I think you guys have done a very good job at that. It's something that I can learn from. And I learn from it. I'm trying to get better at it. It's a little tricky sometimes for me to do it, but I think it's a real strength. And I think that had a lot to do with why Matt and Nicole have had a lot of success in a short amount of time. I think it's this, the involvement of the community that they've done to the extent is excellent. So I've taken that, and that's a big plus that I think a lot of us who started 8 or 9 years ago, again, minus Dojo and Cigar Federation, because they were communities, right? But in terms of more traditional media brands, those are things that I think can learn a lot more from as we head into the next 10 years of Coop. And hopefully I can integrate some unique concepts with that going on.
Do you think, Coop, I mean, other than the year that we just had with the pandemic that gave a, pretty big opportunity for a lot of people to, like I said before, dip their toe in, do you think we'll see a significant rise in new media brands for this premium cigar industry specifically over the next 10 years?
Premium cigar brands or premium media
Premium
brands?
Premium cigar industry. Just will there be new media brands like Smokin Tabacco pop up in the next 10 years, or do you think it'll still be marginal growth like we've seen this past year, excluded from that, obviously?
I think we're seeing it again. If you look at the definition, if we take what the definition of media is, the Instagram, YouTube community is definitely there. Now, I'm telling you, I'm worried about the future of YouTube a great deal. I mean, we have other ways of storing our video that we're going to be okay with if YouTube or Facebook knocks us off, right? But I think the problem is I haven't seen the true media brands come about. So there's a lot less written guys coming out right now. I mean, there hasn't been a new written blog that's made an influence, and if I'm missing one, I apologize. In a while, um, people aren't doing that anymore. Video. I think a lot of people could do it. They could do it in an agile sense. Um, but so I think the answer is we're going to see. I think there's a slowdown, and I think that slowdown is going to continue for the next few years. And if, like I said, if tobacco starts really getting knocked off YouTube, it could get worse. But I can tell you, going back 5 years, there's a lot less media people at the trade show. It's a fact. I don't know. Like I said, they typically have not let the social, like the Facebook groups or the YouTubers, haven't traditionally been allowed into the trade show, and I think they have to start reevaluating that because the media landscape is changing. But I really would like to see some like another half wheel, another Coop, another dojo come up. I think it would be very good for us to do that. Another developing palettes. We just haven't seen that. We're not seeing a lot of that right now. So I'm concerned about where it's heading. I think the other thing that it's gotten a lot more competitive right now too, because a lot of us have kind of been able, here's what happens when you have some success, you try to improve on what you do and you invest it back in. So a lot of these, a lot of us have really had a lot of time to invest. So I'm proud to say I think the bar is high, but I think we need to have that. I think we still need the gateway to have more media folks involved. So I'm concerned. I don't think we're going to see a big increase, not in the short term.
I agree. I agree with that. So
yeah, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I can, I know we had this conversation before, and when we first started, I've said this before on the air, so I think I'm safe. When I first started, my first month, I remember sending an episode to Coop on Facebook, and he being like, what is this? What, like,
oh, I was gonna ask you. I feel so bad to you.
And it was like, oh, I don't know. I was just sharing my stuff. But what I didn't realize, and what Coop explained to me later, and we obviously, we talked about it. Everything's all good.
Yeah.
But what he had said to me was, at the time, in his defense, there was just so much that was coming out at the time that we started, and there was a lot of people who, because of the pandemic, a lot of stuff did pop up, and there was a lot of new stuff, and it was just kind of like maybe a little bit like the Wild West, because I mean, it was just everybody and anybody was trying to start something. But the difference was, long term, after I had later, talked to Coop, is a lot of them just didn't stay. A lot of them didn't make it. We kind of touched on it earlier. A lot of people, they say they want to do it, and then they see how much work it is, and they don't stick with it. Or people, they were only in it because of the quarantine, and then like that, when that ended, people went back to their daily lives, and they were like, well, I have more important shit to do. We stuck with it. We didn't start it because of quarantine. Maybe kind of. We had the opportunity, so we did, but we didn't start it because, like, oh, we have to get on this bandwagon. We just did it just because we wanted to do it. And we stuck with it because we love it and we want to keep going. So, but yeah, there's a lot of people that, and we've had this conversation about even like in the early days of the trade shows when like media first was allowed to come, so to speak. There was a lot of people who were wearing the media hat who were not really in it for the right reason. They said they were media, but it was more or less the photo opportunity and the free cigars, and so there was that aspect to it. Then people like Coop who were like, I'm on the show floor because I'm trying to legitimately do this. So I can see how there was a time when there might have been like a misconception about what media is and who's media and this and that. I would voice my only concern with the newer media, like aside from like what I do, you guys touch on like the Instagram, YouTube. There's a lot of people I see going to the trade shows that I recognize from social media who I don't really see as doing real traditional media. And maybe it's just confusing to me because what I do is a lot more like what you guys do. I see a lot of people going as media who I notice are just people kind of just from Instagram. And it's kind of like, you know, it's just cautionary because it's like, are any of those people, are they just going just to go to the trade show? Are they going just because like, well, I like cigars and I have an Instagram, I want to go to the trade show, you know, and are any of those people going to make the rest of media look bad? Because I know that there was a history with that, you know, like with the media being looked at the wrong way. So that would be my only concern with and that's not all of them. There's just some, not that anyone's done anything bad, but I would just be cautious to see in that little realm of it. You know, but yeah, I mean, you would think that there would be more, you know, like bigger media, like, you know, Coop was saying, you know, like the half wheels and the Coops and popping up. But, you know, I would say that this industry is one that needs its strength in numbers. And, you know, yeah, I mean, more is good. I would say, you know, Bear, I don't even know how old you are,
37.
but yeah, I mean, so you're still kind of like on the younger realm. You know, I'm 27. Nicole's 28. You know, we're younger, and I've had this conversation. People say, well, one of the interesting thing about you is that you're such a much younger generation coming into the media now, that it's like the torch being passed, you know, to the younger guys. You know, the older medias that have been around, you know, it's all about, you know, getting, and I've had this conversation with Jose Blanco, it's getting the next generation in, and it's continuing to grow the next generation that brings into media. And so far, I mean, there's other people than me and Bear out there, you know, in the younger age category that are doing it, but you know, it would be nicer just to see more of it grow. You know, we've talked about too, the cigar industry was a very face-to-face business. I've had this conversation with John on the show before. And last year with COVID, it was one of those situations where this industry was forced to go online. And I think that a lot of people saw how rewarding it can be because they, you know, they were finally forced to do it. It's a lot of work, but hopefully that, what I will end it with is, I hope that that has shown people that more should be invested in the media and in the online presence.
Yeah, Matt, you nailed it, man. And this is, I mean, I think that the trade shows really need to go back and revisit not just who gets into the show for the first time, but revalidate everyone every year. Like, so there's brands who have basically been around for a while, and then they fall off the wagon, and they're doing stuff like once a year, and they're still getting into the trade show, and they're really, like I said, they're just really only publishing around trade show time, and there's a lot of them out there. It's a problem. The other thing that I'll mention is, look, I have a love-hate relationship with Cigar Aficionado. They are putting the screws to the guys doing the news right now, like you wouldn't believe. We have embargoes constantly from companies that they want to go to aficionado, and then we're embargoed from getting it, and we have to wait sometimes days to get it. And I understand giving someone an exclusive in a short window, but like when it goes 2 or 3 days, I'm like, it really is hurting us, and shame on any company who's doing that. Is what I know there's friends of mine who are hearing this who shame on you guys, because you're not helping us. And then, you know, I feel like sometimes that we're given selected stories that, like, when aficionado doesn't want it, suddenly we're called. And I look, we're going to cover it as Coop. Don't get me wrong, we're going to cover it. It stinks. I'm going to be honest, it totally stinks. And that's why, you know, for example, things I cut out were like, you know, there's certain things I've cut out over the past few years as coverage, because, you know, we're not going to be the second banana here. We want to be in with you full time. And if that means, hey, you got to give it to someone for a few hours or one business day, I'm fine with that. But that's hurting us right now. You're hurting media by playing that game, because one publication is not going to take every story. And if you want media to grow and survive, you got to work with us a lot better. And some companies have really worked on that. So I don't want to say, oh, some of them have worked a lot better and they put some things in place. So, but yeah, it's a problem. And that's not helping media grow. And that's why you don't see a lot of news media, simply because it is very aggravating and frustrating when this happens. And it's it's painful when it happens. So there's concerns I have with this, like I said, going forward.
Yeah, I think that just, you know, there needs to be more growth, you know, and the wealth should be shared a little bit more with you know, with the certain publications who, you know, like we're really in it to win it. And I think that there needs to be kind of a definition of like,
Yeah.
that versus, you know, people who, you know, like you said, like the people who are not really fully into delivering the news. And I always kind of looked at it as well. My opinion, and it's open for debate, is, you know, I look at the trade show and it's like, well, there should be, you know, media that goes there, you know, on the front lines, going to the manufacturers, being the voice. Like, what do you have that's new? Tell me about what you have, what's going on, what are the plans, getting the information to the
Yeah.
consumer so that they are aware of what's coming, what they should be excited about, what they should be asking their local brick and mortar shop for, what they should be looking for, you know, on online retailers as well. But you know, it's getting the word out. It's helping you sell more product. It's not about, you know, going to the trade show to walk around and meet people and just see stuff. It's, you know, we're
Yeah.
there for a reason. We have a job to do. It's no, we're getting the information to the public. And there should be more of that. And it should be, you know, we're in the end, we're there to help them. You know, I mean, you know, we're growing our own brands and stuff doing it, but the reality is, like, you release news on the website. It's news that it advertisement and public, you know, and publicizes things that happen that
Yep.
make people aware. And I think that that's important, and there should be more of it, and it should be very, very welcomed. I mean, we're kind of doing your job too. I mean, in a way, you know, helping you advertise, and you know,
Yeah.
it's very important.
I heard I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go here, Bear. I'm sorry. I heard one podcast say that media doesn't belong. This is a podcast that said this. A cigar podcast said that media does not belong at the trade show. That it's a special relationship with the manufacturer and the retailer for those 4 days. And this is referring to IPCPR. I understand that. Okay. I totally get that. Okay. However, media is not a 361-day a year thing. It's a 365-day a year thing. And at the biggest, most important, and there's going to be an article on Coop coming out on this a little more. At our biggest event in the US, which is the PCA trade show still. And, you know, we need to be there. Media needs to be there. People want to get the vibe of the show from the products, from the exhibits, and media needs to be there. We don't want to interfere with business, but media needs to be there. We can't give up the 4 most important days of the year. There's a way we can. We've proven we can coexist. Most of the media goes to the show. You know, there's a lot of good media that goes to the show. We need that 365 days a year. So there's a way we can coexist and everyone can be happy. And we've talked a couple examples tonight, like with the Matt Booth thing and stuff like that. So that's my soapbox. There's actually an article coming out on Coop on this. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think my only thing is, my only soapbox thing is, you know, because of the stance that people have on media and how it's already kind of not like a perfect situation, because you know, there are people who have differing opinions on media as a whole. I think that the media that needs and deserves to be there should be there. And I don't think that it should just be anyone who wants to put on the media hat, you know, should just come filtering in.
Yeah.
Because what my fear is it paints a picture as a whole. And you know, watching, you know, the photos from TPE, as I said before, there was a lot of people there who I knew are not. So, and I'll come right out and say it. And I'm sorry if anyone disagrees, but I saw a lot of people I recognized at TPE who were not cigar media. They were strictly like social media enthusiasts who post a lot of
Out
cigar
there.
pictures and do stuff, but they're not doing what we're doing. And it's kind of like, for me, and it's, I'm not trying to be like, you know, a salty ass about it. It's just
You're right.
my stance on it is, you know, and I'm not going to dance around it, I guess. You know, what you and I and Bear do, putting these shows together and putting our websites together and putting the news out and taking the time, and we make appointments with manufacturers and we go visit the manufacturers and we have relationships with these people. It's different from, you're just a really big cigar fan and you have a really popular Instagram account and you take a lot of sexy photos and you go to the trade show like, oh, I'm part of the media.
No,
I
you're
mean,
right. You're
it's
100% right.
like, I get it. You want to go there. It's fun. It's not a fully public platform though. It's meant for, the primary focus being, yes, the retailers, distributors, and manufacturers to do business, and then the real meat and potato media who's there to get that news out. It's not just there for you to be like, oh, I'm at a cigar show. Like, yeah, I mean, there's a reason for that trade show. It's not like the car shows that come, you get to just go and see all the new cars and whatever. It's people are there to make money. That's just my soapbox. And if people don't agree, I'm sorry, but I just, just kind of how I feel about it.
Matt, you're right, and this is part of the problem that happens. So there's a lot of these guys get in not as media credentials; they're getting in through manufacturers, and they're basically saying, "I'll work your booths for free. I'll do social media for you for free." And I think there's got to be some control on that. Okay, I don't think I think there's got to be a lot of control. And if you're getting in as that, you better be working your booths, like doing the social media for that booth, not walking around the trade show. I mean, I don't want to prevent someone from walking around the trade show, but you're in there you have a role in there, and you should be following that role. And if you want media credentials, apply for media credentials, and let's have PCA's asked me a bunch of times in the past, IPCBR, about setting the media credentials. I can't do that. It's not my show. And a lot of us in the media are very, very strong about that. They need to figure that out on their own. If they want to ask questions, that's totally fine. You mentioned Barry Stein earlier on, right? And Barry, when this was all going on, had a very good position. And I remember he said this to me, right? He said, look, if you're going to be at the trade show, you better at least have a domain. And Bear, I know you don't have a domain name, so I'm not trying to pick on you. You better at least have a domain name, like not a free WordPress site, because, I think, Bear, your podcast is like, it's different, right? But I'm just saying back then.
You don't have to make excuses for me, Coop. Go for it. It's all good.
I don't want to make it think I'm picking on you.
Look,
but he
Bear
right.
has enough skin in the game.
right, exactly. Bear has enough skin in the game at this point. But the reason was because they didn't want someone creating a WordPress site, right? And didn't have a brand out there, right? So that was a very good thing. I don't know if they enforced that rule anymore, but like you can't go in with a blog spot site or WordPress. You couldn't go in back then. You had to have a legitimate domain, and that kind of at least gave your brand some credibility there. How you go do your content after that, I think as long as you're doing content on a regular basis, that's freedom of expression at that point. So it's a real problem because these guys, this free labor gets into the trade show all the time. And PCA, I guarantee you, it's going to be you're going to see a lot of it this year.
Oh yeah, I'm expected to go in there and just see a lot of
and
see a lot of people
yeah.
and kind of be like, oh, who are you? Who are you with?
Right.
Oh, I'm.
Like I said, I don't want to discourage some of the guys who are doing really good content on those mediums. So I'm
right.
But I think it's got to be more than just I'm putting pictures up of cigars. Is kind of what I get at. Yeah. I don't think that or pictures of booze. I mean, I don't think that's enough. I think you gotta have a real role there in providing a coverage model. And I understand maybe that's what that podcast was saying earlier on about not belonging at the trade show. I disagree with that. I think there's a role for media, but it's a specific role, not an open role.
No, I agree with all points, gentlemen. I think the one thing I'll add to this final point, and then we'll get into the curveball segment here, is that Coop did a tremendous job of working me in and mentoring me in how to approach these trade shows from the media aspect. But I think my mindset was set very early on because I remember having the very, very early on, before years, almost a decade before my first trade show, the general manager for the store that I work at part-time, Tracy Spence, who I've spent a numerous amount of time talking about on this show and on our show, Coop. He's been a great influence to me. And one of the things I said early on to him was like, man, I really want to go to the trade show because, I really want to experience that and the new products and this and that and the other. He's like, Barry, you don't understand the work that goes involved. I mean, this is tough work. And he really prepared me for it. So when I went to work for you, Coop, or as you say, with you, yes, I knew you were going to correct me. Yeah. When I went to work with you, I and feel free to correct me. I believe I had the right mindset going into that first trade show.
You totally did. You totally did. And, we're bringing in Aaron Nielsen, but he's got the right mindset. It's very important. And I, the year you didn't go, the first year, I told you I wasn't prepared for the trade show, and it was 2017, I wish I could erase that year. I dropped the ball in preparation, and it was not a good year, and I had to fix that after that. It took a couple of years to fix it.
Just all goes back to Matt's point earlier about preparation. So even someone like yourself who's done this, going on their, 10 plus years now. I mean, it's something that we continually have to make a point to it, so that when we do show up, we differentiate ourselves from the pretenders, so to speak. And not to say that these other media outlets don't deserve a seat at the table. They do, as long as they have the approach right. They can be different. Right. They can be unique. And that's great. This industry needs it. I'm all for it. But if you come in with that mentality that I had very early on, that this is just a grab bag, sensation, or this is a time to glad hand or a photo op, it's going to flop on you. Because people are there to do business, and we're there to do business. We're there to provide the coverage that is necessary for this industry. And you have the opportunity. I'm talking to all the new people. You have the opportunity to do that same thing in the way you want to do it. You just have to do it right.
Yeah, and there's other brands like Developing Palace is a good example. They don't do a ton of trade show coverage from the floor, but there's a couple things they do that. There's a few things they do that. One is they really, that's a part where their team can interact with people, learn about stuff, and that sets them up for the year for doing reviews. Like, not necessarily getting the free samples, because they buy their cigars to review. So it's not about that, right? But they go in for a relationship piece, and Aaron does a post wrap. That's why we always make sure the post wrap up show is Aaron has that, or he always makes sure that he has that, because he does produce some level of content, but it's more of a strategic approach where they're in there, and that's an important piece too. And Matt, you're going to find this when you meet some of the new people or people you don't normally see. It's going to be very important. That piece is as much as like putting a video or putting a written piece out.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, the time has come. It's time for the curveball segment. The Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs, doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. 6 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Yeah, I looked it up, and I even got fact checked by my guest tonight, Mr. William Cooper. So, 6 consecutive years, home runs.
And you know what? I don't think I'm going to get 7 this year now.
Whatever, Steve. 7 it is. 7 it is. We'll be talking about 7 here shortly enough. Gentlemen, we've all chosen a brand name that has our name in it. Smokin Tabacco, Cigar Coop, ELOSOFUMARTAKES. Our name is in our brand. I want to know, if you couldn't have your name in your brand, what would it be? And I'll go first, because I thought about changing this, because I wanted to, as everyone knows, my approach to the show is a deeper aspect, the story behind the story, a more dramatic approach to cigar podcasting. And I thought for a while, I was like, man, what's more dramatic than a soap opera? And I was like, As the Cigar Burns. I thought about that. Luckily, I've stuck with my name, because I think As the Cigar Burns would have been a little too cheesy, as much as I do wax the cheese on every once in a while. As the Cigar Burns would have probably failed and flopped. So I'm glad I've stuck with ELOSOFUMARTAKES. But As the Cigar Burns was a name I was considering for the show. But I'm glad I went this direction. Hindsight is not 2020 in this case, because I think I definitely landed on the winner. So, Coop, I'll go to you first.
Well, it's funny because it's kind of a little bit of. I didn't want Cigar Coop, right? Originally, right? Because I never thought this thing would take off, and if I had, I would not have put my name in it, right? But when I launched the podcast, they're under a primetime banner. The problem is I don't think I can brand it as Primetime Cigars or Cigars Primetime, because I think it's out there already. And I always kind of wonder if one day I'm going to get a notice to stop using the Primetime thing there, right? So, I mean, I thought about like Cigar News Network, CNN, or Stogie News Network, SNN. One of those two I probably would go with. I'd want the word news in there because that's what we do. Everything's based on the news. And if the brand name had the news in it, it would have been easier for sure. Someone had Cigar News already, and but yeah, I mean, I would say probably Cigar News Network or something like that. I would go with.
Mine's kind of tough because you have to almost eliminate the word tobacco altogether because that's so obviously unique to me and what's kind of special about my name to begin with. So it would have to be, it couldn't be anything that was on tobacco. It would have to be specifically cigar something. That's a tough one. I've never really thought about that. The way that our name came to be, I actually didn't even come up with it. I was not the one who coined the name Smokin Tabacco. Smokin Tabacco was coined by one of my best friends. After I was in I had just gone out of a long relationship and I was in a low point and I needed a distraction. And a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you're into the cigars really heavily. What if you did something with that and you had like some sort of cigar thing going on online?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And it was like, well, I just do cigar stuff, like do like cigar media stuff online. And I was like, all right. And he was like, you call it Smokin Tabacco, but spell it like your name, do the play on words. But it's, I'm like, oh yeah, wow. And it stuck and it made so much sense. And that was really the most of the magic behind the name Smokin Tabacco is that it's not just smoking tobacco. It's me, because it is my name. So yeah, no, that really is that's a tough one. So yeah, like I said, I'd have to eliminate tobacco altogether. Regardless, it would have to be kind of like I would follow what Coop said with like Cigar News or something like that because he's right. I mean, that's what we do. It's cigar news, cigar media, cigar information. I think of like a newspaper kind of like title, like like New York Times, like Cigar Times, or the Daily Cigar, or I don't even is that already one Daily Cigar?
Daily isn't it? But I think a lot of these are taken too. But yeah, that's the
But yeah,
tricky part.
but something along those lines,
Right.
something I think of in my mind. I go to like that like newspaper kind of name, that relates to cigar news and media and information and
Like Cigar Times or Cigar Herald or something like that, or
yeah, Herald, yeah, like the Cigar Herald. That's where my mind goes. Because to kind of, I was thinking the same thing that kind of Coop said. It's cigar news, so that's what we do, and you got to keep that in the name, and it's that expression of this is what it is. It's not just like a random cigar thing. We're here for news, we're here for information or entertainment, education, what have you. We're here to inform. So I would say that's probably where I would go with it.
well, speaking as a fan of both y'all shows, I have to say that y'all landed on some gold because I think it works in both y'all's case. Like you said, Matt, I think it's perfect. Smokin Tabacco. How could you not? How could you not utilize the name? It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's perfect. So, well, gentlemen, from the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you enough for tonight. Just an absolute blast I had tonight. What a great discussion. Great points of view, great perspectives, just a fantastic time. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It really means the world to me that you guys sat down for so long tonight just to have a conversation with me about this perspective, done on the fly, virtually, and it was everything I hoped and more. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Thanks for the opportunity. I know that my first appearance on this show, I think you wanted something a little bit different as we talked about, but you'll still get that opportunity, I guess. But yeah, no, happy to do it. Like you said, you need something, you call and you help your peers out, and that's
what you do.
Kind of, it echoes kind of what we've been trying to say in this last hour. We're in this together, so we should stick together and help each other out. So
Exactly.
yeah, no problem.
100%. So I want to thank my audience for staying up late with us tonight. Appreciate all your likes, shares, and comments. Be sure to check out our Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR, for upcoming guests as they come down the pipe. We got some great shows on the menu for you, and I'm really excited to welcome in a couple of guests, including the one that we've talked about quite a bit tonight. In the middle of next month, we'll be welcoming in Matt Booth. He'll be returning to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. We also have Jared Trudeau of Christoph Cigars. Cigar Hustler Mike will be on next week's show. So Mike's got yes. Mike's a great interview, and I'm really excited to welcome him back to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. So great shows coming. Check out our ELOSOFUMAR page on Facebook. Check out the ELOSOFUMAR channel on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you are listening to us later on, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you hit that download, the subscribe, and review button. And if you already are a subscriber, please do me a favor, unsubscribe. But please don't forget to resubscribe. That continues to earn my support and allow me to get great guests like the two gentlemen tonight. So for everyone out there, this was our 168th take. Mr. William Cooper, Mr. Matthew Tabacco, we really appreciate all of you. Live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis. Guess what, everyone? See you next time.